Today is May the 18th, 2024. My name is Tanya Finchum. I'm with Oklahoma State University with the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program. Today we are in Jonesboro, Arkansas, and I will be speaking with Dr. Steve Kite and Dr. Shelly Lemons, both OSU graduates. Steve in 2003 and Shelly in 2004, PhDs in history, yes. I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they were very instrumental in what we are giving credit as our first oral history project within the library, and it was the Dust Bowl, Women of the Dust Bowl. A prettier title now is Dust Dry and Dreams Gone Dry. Mm-hmm. So thank you for coming today.
Yep. Absolutely.
Before we get into that project, let's learn a little bit about each of you. Either one of you start first.
Yep, all right. Well, I'm a native Oklahoman. I was born in Bartlesville, and after graduating from high school there, I went to OSU for my undergraduate between 83 and 87 in journalism, and then I didn't want to do that, so I went into secondary ed and to teach social studies and history and whatnot, and I got my secondary teaching certification and left OSU, lived in Kansas for a while. Ended up getting my master's in history at Emporia State in Emporia, Kansas, and then came back to OSU to work on my PhD. And after many years, I finished in 2003. I think I was maybe the second longest running PhD candidate in OSU history at that time.
Wow.
Maybe the longest, I don't know.
And you decided you didn't want to teach?
Yeah, I taught 9th grade Oklahoma history for a year and said, I don't want to do that. So I went on, kept going on to school. I'm glad I did. So OSU up around Kansas for a while, and then back to OSU for my PhD, taught, they let me hang on there for a little while and teach. And I did adjunct work at University of Central Oklahoma, and I worked at the Oklahoma History Center for a while. I got a job at Fort Hays State University in Hays, Kansas, running their public history program, and I did that for 3 years, and then got a job at the University of Arkansas in Fort Smith, and I relocated there with my wife in 2000, in August of 2010. I started there. So at that point, I've been there teaching history at UA Fort Smith in 2010 till now.
And it's what you want to do.
That's what I want to do. I finally figured it out.
All right, Shelly.
Well, let's see. I grew up in the Ozarks. My dad was in the Army, so I was born at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. But right after I was born, my dad, he was a drill sergeant. He had a couple more years and he retired. And so we moved to the farm where he was born and grew up, just north of Springfield, Missouri. So I grew up on a little farm outside of Fairgrove. And like lots of kids who grew up on a little farm outside of Fairgrove, I couldn't wait to get the hell out of there. So I was like, where can I go to school that's not here? But I was always very, very concerned. My parents, youngest of 4 kids, and they weren't going to have money to send me to school. So I was like, wherever I get a scholarship, that's where I'll go. And so I got a full ride to Missouri Southern State College in Joplin, Missouri. Mm-hmm. So I went there and I graduated. I graduated high school in 91 and graduated from Missouri Southern in 95. And so, I thought I was going to go to law school. And then I went, first generation college student. And so it was like either medical school or law school is what I thought when I started. And I was like, well, I don't like that. So I guess I'll go law school. So I majored in history and fell in love with it as I was doing that work, but then was getting ready to take LSATs and all that to go to law school and went, I don't want to do that. That doesn't sound very fun. Because the history research I've been doing with my advisors was cool. And I had worked at the Truman Library and done some stuff. And so I said, well, I'll apply for graduate school. And if I get in and I get some funding, I'll just keep going until I don't get any funding. So I got my master's from Missouri State in Springfield on a scholarship and came out of there with, okay. Then I applied to graduate school to apply to OSU. I applied a lot of places, but OSU was the place I got in, and it turned out to be the perfect fit So in 97, moved to Oklahoma and lived in Ripley, Oklahoma, and that was a whole scene, driving back and forth into Stillwater. but yeah, I was actually Laura Belmonte's very first PhD student.
Okay.
Yeah, so my claim to fame and OSU legends and lore. But then I had done TA work and finally had gotten my own class and then passed comprehensive exams and thought, okay, I'm dissertation, that's it. That's, I started working at Special Collections and we did the Dust Bowl project. It's like, okay, I gotta get my dissertation done so I can graduate and be done with all of this. And then I did a practice interview for a full-time job. And I ended up getting it. So I moved to Utah and with this full-time tenure track job before I finished my dissertation. So I left Oklahoma in 2001, in end of the summer in 2001, and moved to Utah. And I taught there for 3 years and finished my PhD. I defended my dissertation, all of that jazz, and then applied for a job back in the Midwest and went to St. Louis Community College for 6 years. I kind of thought I would probably, be a lifer, retire from there. And this job popped up to teach women's history and modern American history at McKendree University in Lebanon, Illinois. And so in 2010, I got that job and moved to Illinois, and that's where I am now. So I've been there since 2010, so 14 years. So yeah, it's a good gig.
So how far from home?
Lebanon is just about 20 miles east of St. Louis, downtown St. Louis. So I'm about 4.5 hours from where I grew up.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's a good place.
And you're about the same then from Bartlesville to Fort Smith.
Yeah.
It might be less.
It's less than that. I mean, it's maybe 2.5, 2:45, something to get there. My parents don't, my mom lives close to us now. My dad's passed away, so I don't really go back to Bartlesville anymore, but you still think that's your home.
Right.
I want to point out.
Both my parents have passed away, but I still think of that as my home.
Dr. Belmonte,
Uh-huh.
you were her first PhD student, and I think I was the person that made Jim Houston say he didn't want any more PhD students. I know he
That
had.
sounds about right.
Yeah, I know he had some more after me, but I go like, I don't want any more after that guy.
So what was the topic of each one of your dissertations?
Well, I started out, I was going to do Cold War history, which is how I started working with Laura Belmonte. And then I took her graduate class, Gender in America. And it completely changed my focus, can change what I wanted to do. And I ended up, my dissertation was called Down on First Street, and it was about prostitution and vice in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and how that related to the Tulsa Race Massacre. Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
My dissertation was on rural radicalism in Kansas and Oklahoma. I kind of use Kansas as the hotbed of populist politics in the 1890s, compare that to Oklahoma being the hotbed of socialist politics in the 19-teens. And how did they compare and contrast with each other? How did Kansas, the one-time hotspot of rural radicalism, become opposed to that so ardently in just a few short years, while Oklahoma had never really given much support to the populists, but all of a sudden they became radical socialists. So I examined the differences between those two states and politics.
And you worked or at least part-time while you were doing this?
Oh, yes,
in the library some of that time?
Oh, yes, yeah.
I went over so our connection really to Special Collections begins with the history department cutting my funding off because I've been there too long. And, they give you 4 years or something. I've been there 4 years.
Get out.
Get out of here. So I wandered over to the Special Collections department. Heather Lloyd was in charge of it there, and I said, I need a job. I need some money, and I can do what you're doing over here. I'm a history person. I love history. I love Oklahoma history. I can do all this. You need some help. And she's like, I guess so. And so she hired me on as a part-time worker there, and then ended up gradually getting up to 3/4 time, almost full time there. And then Shelly.
Well, in 2000, I think it was in 2000, they put out an ad, a call. Special Collections wanted to build their women's archives, and they wanted to do an oral history project. And I think it was already determined determined that it would be something Dust Bowl related.
Yeah.
And so then I applied because I was getting close to the end of my 4 years of funding, and I was doing women's history anyway. And so I thought, well, you know, everybody works at the library. I need to work there
All the
too.
cool people working at the library.
So I applied, and I remember I interviewed with you and Jennifer Paustenbaugh in the Angie DeBow room. So whether or not I could.
I think she became head of that department in 2000, so
Yeah.
that time's
Yeah.
up with
It
that.
would have been just right after Heather passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And
Shortly after she retired, if I remember correctly.
yeah. Well,
Within a year.
yeah, right. Yeah, I always remember. Yeah, that was kind of an odd time. Let's talk about this. Circle back around to that. Maybe with Jennifer.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Because there
Yeah.
were some stories going on there. But okay, so
So yeah, I interviewed for a position to be able to work with building up women's archives. They hired me. I don't know. I was the only one that applied. I don't know.
I don't think so. But I can't actually remember.
But that's when you and I started working together. Was after that.
You didn't know each other before then.
We had met, but we weren't in the same circles.
Right.
Really.
I had been there a while. My
Uh-huh.
cohort was different.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the new crew was coming in. So
Yeah. So I started reading books on the Dust Bowl, and we started figuring out how we were gonna do
well,
something.
I remember because Heather in her last years, and this isn't part of what I was going to say earlier, but she'd been there a long time, and her mom was head of special collections before she was. Yeah, that was kind of weird. But so she'd been connected with that department for a long, long time. I think she had lost some steam. She was kind of moving out, and Jennifer comes in and is all, get this, and so she somehow landed us money. She got us this money I don't think Heather would have bothered going out to try to get that money, but we ended up getting some funding, and she said, we've got this funding, but it's got to be for something dealing with Oklahoma women's history.
Okay.
And so I know exactly where I was standing. I was facing that little closet, and when she was talking to me, because I think she might have been in it, and thinking, what could we do? And so I started to think, like, what area of history is about to be lost?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what group of women are about to die, or are losing their memories, are losing their experiences? And so we kind of got that age, and then we said, okay, what was happening in their lives that we could talk about? We kind of worked backwards from what history is being lost. And we said, oh my gosh, it's the Dust Bowl experience. Those women are now getting to the point where they're losing their memories and they're dying off, and we need to capture that. So we just kind of said, let's do Dust Bowl history, and went forward with that.
And oral history was part of it from the get-go then?
Oh yeah, we knew that we were gonna capture their memories, and that was the way we had. That's how.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So how did it develop from there? You had to do CITI, all of that institutional research.
IRB, and all that
Yes.
stuff.
Well, that's a good story too.
You tell that story, because I don't remember doing any. I don't think
Okay,
we had.
so I started in the fall of 2000,
I think
and we started reading, trying to because I'd done a little bit of oral history work before in my master's program, but not like designing a whole project.
Me too, yeah.
I'd done some interviewing before. It's like, okay, well, we're going to have standard questions. To have standard questions, we have to know a little bit about the background. To know a little bit about the background, we need to read all these books. So we're going through all this stuff. And we got started sort of like building up what an ideal interview might look like. And then we had to figure out who we were going to talk to, which we can talk about that in a second. But we actually had already gotten started with like the planning stages. When we get there, ding, ding, you got to make sure you do IRB too. And we're like, okay, we got to figure this out now too. Everything seemed like, when I look back on that, it seemed like everything was being done like as it was coming, having to be really flexible and learn on the fly.
Yeah.
I think that was what made it so great.
I don't think we had to deal with IRB, because I think there would have been
We filled out the forms.
Well, there had been a change, I think, in oral history procedure. Universities released oral histories from having to go through the.
I remember sitting on 5 at that computer, typing it out.
Well, maybe you did it all, or
Maybe so.
Because they say submit the questions before they have to. Did you do that? Did you submit?
We did that together. You were sitting beside me. You had just forgotten.
I just hated that part of it so much.
Well, you were being a little. We were answering questions.
I did not understand why.
Yeah.
We had to go through all this, and no one else did either. And eventually, oral history is now
And then we don't.
removed from IRB's
Yeah.
Requirements. So
Yeah,
thank
that's so
goodness.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess we did do that. I banished it to the.
You blocked it from your
Yeah, I
memory.
did, yeah.
Where you had to get deed of gifts and informed consent signs.
Yes.
From
Right. So
from them,
we I don't know. We cobbled together forms or got
Mm-hmm.
forms from a book or something. We put together our deed of
Mhm.
gift, and maybe the library legalese teams ran through that or whatever. But we got those started. I remember the toughest point in beginning was how do we find these people? You know, like
Right.
we're sitting in Stillwater, Oklahoma. How do we find people that live through the Dust Bowl? And
And at the time that we were starting this, I had never been west of I-35.
which bisects north south Oklahoma.
Yeah, and so I was like, okay, well, this is an adventure of some sort.
Yeah. So we were calling. So like, what would you do?
What would I do?
Yeah.
Check local museums and maybe with extension workers in that particular county.
Yes, that's what we did after we did the wrong thing. Because we were calling nursing homes, living centers.
Well, that
Mhm.
seems reasonable too.
Yeah, but they were, and good for them, but they were very protective of
Yes.
their residents.
As
So
they should be.
they were like, no, you can't just come in here. We're not going to let you come and talk to people. We're not going to deal with you. You know, they were very standoffish. We didn't get anywhere that way. And you know, to be honest, we're just cold calling people.
Right.
You know, we're hey, hello. You know, they don't know what we're.
Yeah, I don't like doing that.
Yeah.
No, so yeah,
Did
that.
you use the newspaper to recruit at all? I mean, that was
No,
Old
that would have been a good
school,
idea.
Yeah, we didn't
No.
at all. That probably would have been.
What we did though was we decided, you know, we need to find people who are like us that understand what we're trying to do. So, well, why don't we call like museums, you know, like senior centers, not the nursing facility, but like the recreation kind of place, because people would understand kind of what we were trying to do. And we got a lot more traction that way.
Yeah, because the museum people would say, oh, I know somebody you need to talk to. You need to talk to Lucille Hartman.
Right.
And, you know, they would point us to kind of the rock stars of the area.
Mhm.
And those ladies would be like, ladies, you know, we've got a project. And they would start to recruit others.
But I gotta tell you, you have to be careful getting into that scene too. We bumped into some things that I'm gonna tell that story. I'll do it as diplomatically as possible, but it definitely fits in this vibe that we're in Stillwater and we want to go out into far western Oklahoma. So I mean, we're looking at 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hour drives out to where we're going to do interviews, and we have to set stuff up before we go that way for sure. And so once we kind of get the traction on, oh, here's a list of names, start calling people to try to see if they want to be engaged in an interview with us. There's a pecking order, and if you don't call the right person first,
Yes.
you are in trouble.
Yeah. Like if the head rock star, the county isn't called first,
Mhm.
then, you know, if some underling tells her of what's happening
That's not
and she hasn't been informed of it already, yeah, you've insulted.
right.
And
Yeah.
that we did that at least once or twice. I mean, I'm a
Idora Whalen is the
Idora
one
Whalen.
I'm thinking of. So, you know, in the files at OSU of our field notes, there's a file folder, or there was last time I was there, it's a file folder that's identified as the Idora Whalen incident
yes.
that we.
How did you work through it?
Well, so we had set up this interview series, and this is a great story. We'd set up this interview series, and go, stop laughing, I can't tell the
I
story.
keep remembering more.
And well, we had it all set up, and it was going to be in January, and there was a big ice storm that was coming through. So we decided we need to cancel this and reschedule this series of interviews. And so we get on the phone and start calling, and we know who the queen is of this set, but she doesn't answer her phone the first time. So we have to tell these people we're not coming. And so we just continue down the list of telling people, well, we got about the third person down the list, and Idora Whalen has now heard from her friends that we're calling and canceling, but we haven't talked to her. And she calls and you answer the phone. She was mad at you.
Oh yeah,
She was fussing with you.
Yeah, why didn't I call her? Well, first, she didn't think we needed to cancel. She was she was telling us from 4 or 5 hours away what the weather was like where she was, and we didn't have any business canceling that. Why didn't we tell her? And on and on and on.
And then you ended up hanging up on each other partway through.
Yeah, she was not being nice.
And that's in that file. And then we both hung up on each other. Well, so when we get the interviews rescheduled, and so we go out to do these interview sets, he's like, I'm not going to Idora Whalen's. It was going to be at her house. It's like, I'm not going to Idora Whalen's house. I don't think you should be going to Idora Whalen's house either. So we had one car. And so we rescheduled interviews. There were 2 simultaneous groups being interviewed at the same time. So he drops me off at Idora Whalen's house and then goes to wherever you're going to do the other interview set. And I'm walking up the driveway with all my oral history gear. I knock on the door, and this woman who is like 4 inches shorter than me, and I'm not tall, opens the door and she peers out. She says, "Is that guy with you?" And I look over my shoulder and I said, "No, ma'am, it's just me." She goes, "Oh, well, come in." And she was so nice to me. She was not talking to him.
I was not allowed.
You were not welcome.
Did she get over it eventually?
Whenever we did the interview, she was lovely.
No, but with
I don't know if you ever had any other interaction.
That was the end of that.
Yeah. But we learned to be careful, though. You just didn't know what you were getting into.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you did have to figure out that personality or that hierarchy of the area, the county, or the town. And I think for the most part, though, that helped us out because we would know, the museums or the history centers or whatever would get us in contact with those top level people, and we would work with them to get everything going.
Yeah, I wondered if they would discourage you from asking other people, that we're not in their.
Well, that was interesting too. You want to talk about why we started doing the groups?
Yeah, so this is something I'm going to talk about later today, but because
initially we started out doing things the right way of one narrator, us as interviewers, talking through questions. Yeah.
And typical oral history stuff, right? And we started doing our interviews in Stillwater. I mean, with people just who we knew, or Jennifer knew, or something that we knew had lived through the Dust Bowl but didn't move to Stillwater. So, but then when we realized, oh my gosh, this really isn't the Dust Bowl. Like the west or east of the Panhandle really wasn't the Dust Bowl. I mean, they thought it was, but they didn't know. Once we started getting out into Beaver, Texas, and Cimarron County, then we got to the Dust Bowl, the Dust Bowl, and we got more and more and more people. So we were driving 6 hours out there with just 2 of us, not a lot of time, and all these people to interview. And there was no way we could do one-on-one interviews and capture all of these interviews that we wanted. So we said, all right, let's do group interviews. And that way we can get as many people as we possibly can, right? So we started to set up 2 or 3, 4 or 5 people at a time and work it that way.
And sometimes people, when we would call initially, said they didn't want to participate. And Tressie Hathaway, she was like, "Nope, I am not. I already talked to other people. I don't want to do this." And she said, "No,
I will not talk to you."
That's right. And then
we get there,
and she said, "Well, why aren't you talking to me?" I said, "Well, would you like to participate?" So she ended up being in a group with her friends. She would come with her friends.
Yeah, like she told us she didn't want to talk to us, but then when her friends told her they were going, she said, "Okay, I'll go."
Yeah.
So the group dynamic, I think, ended up helping us in a lot of ways because people wouldn't have come by themselves, but when they heard that their friends were going, they decided to come along. And then in other ways too, like somebody would launch into a story and then forget where they were going or forget the details or get all off track or whatever. And somebody else in the group would say, "I remember that," and they would pick up the story and finish it for us, or correct the mistakes or add in or whatever. So there was a real group dynamic of of telling these stories. And I say in my presentation today, these ladies, I mean, if, at a lot of the time you were sitting here interviewing them, and I'd say, well, where were you born? They go, 2 miles that way. You know, and they were 92 years old.
Right.
You know,
Right.
all of these ladies had lived 80 or 90 years together. So they could almost speak as a collective unit, you know. And so the groups was format was done out of necessity. It helped us get people there. It helped us get accuracy with our interviews, and I think it really added to the atmosphere.
And I think now there's some analysis that we can do out of those interviews that we wouldn't have been able to do before. Because one of the things I'm really interested in whatever research track we end up on next, is the differences in people's experiences in class. Because the Panhandle is not very racially diverse from the 30s. It is more now, but well, population is really low, so it doesn't take much to look diverse on paper. But in the time of the 30s, I mean, everybody kind of looked the same, but there was a class distinction. And in some of those group interviews is where you can start to hear people say that. It's like, oh, you know, we always went to town on Saturday, and I always got an apple at the grocery store. It's like, we never got to go to town. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The one lady that talked about, oh, out on the ranch, we would roll up the carpets and roller skate around the house, and other people saying, you know, I played with corn cobs. I don't even. Their experiences really come out as being contrasting in those group interviews that I wouldn't have thought to ask.
Right. So it's kind of like if we would have just interviewed one person, we would have gotten a story. If we would have interviewed another person, we would have gotten a different story, but we wouldn't have heard both of those stories. Right. So we knew immediately, though, like, okay, this is awesome because we thought we were going to get 2 people, but we now have 5, and we're getting all these great stories. But you know, you got one camera, one microphone. How are you capturing 5 people? And so we had to kind of immediately start shifting and thinking, how are we going to do this? So we organized. So like one person became the interviewer, the other person watched the equipment, changed tapes in and out, made sure that everything was still recording and doing all right. And that person would keep a running list of notes so that anytime someone started talking, we would say like white shirt, glasses, and then a few of the words they started out with. So I was born on the sandbank. Okay, white shirt, glasses, born on sandbank, right? So the transcriptionist could be like, then we took pictures. So we said, oh, white shirt, glasses, that's Tanya. I was born on sandbank. Okay, so that's Tanya talking. You know, so we could sort out that big mess back on the transcription.
All of those field notes are in the archives too. It's like when I would do it, I was always at the top, like a waitress at a restaurant, writing out people around the circle, right? And then I'm looking, now that I've got a number. Okay, all right. Okay, 1 is white shirt, glasses. Okay, sandbank. Okay, 1 is sandbank. And so you can tell who was the note taker based on sort of the style we came up with of our own of how we're going to keep track of it. Although, Steve, you're better at the descriptions than I am for sure. Yeah.
But it worked. So when the transcriptionists who were student workers, they were hired, they could see who was saying what, you know what, because you can't really tell in that big jumble of recordings.
And even sometimes I'm writing everybody talking because it's just,
chaos.
And it wasn't video recorded at that time, it was just
all audio.
Right, it's just total audio. So you're listening to that.
Right, mashup.
Right, it was the original mashup.
Yeah.
Once they were transcribed, did the narrators get to review them?
They're supposed to.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, I think we both started to move out of the scene. I mean, we started, well, you got your job out, and then I was also there. I was kind of finishing my time at the library, and so we got to see some of the early transcripts. And I think I know those have maybe gone out to people, but as far as getting the bulk of the transcription sent out, I don't think I was there when that happened.
Yeah, but we know from a return trip that at least the transcripts made it to places like the Cimarron Heritage Center, because when we went back out there to do a different project, there they were.
Yeah, they had it out there.
I just wondered if the transcriber got the wrong person saying the wrong thing, and if there was an opportunity to check that, and probably not. It sounds like it'd be too hard to.
I mean, as many times as I have listened to and reread the transcripts, they seem accurate. Yeah, that's for the most part.
I don't think those people would have known. Like if you sent them
true,
the
too.
transcript out there, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know if I said that. I don't know what we were talking about out there.
Were there pairs of sisters or,
Sometimes we got sibling sets. They're, yeah.
and their stories collaborate?
Usually, yes.
Yeah. I can remember, I don't think they were sisters, but I can remember doing a group interview. I think it's in Cimarron County. They were talking about taking golf clubs out to the golf course, but it was all sandy, and they were using the golf clubs to beat rattlesnakes.
Yes, yeah, they had well, that was something too, because I was talking about class, because they had golf courses out there,
Yeah.
but they were sand, instead of greens, like grass greens, they had sand greens, but you still see, I think, but yeah, so these ladies were out playing golf,
Right,
you know,
right.
we use those golf clubs, we beat rattlesnakes. You know, it's
Right.
like, what?
But that wasn't even the story I was going to tell out of that. That's just the interview we were in.
Yes, yeah.
That one of the women had a nickname, and the people in the group kept referring to her as the nickname, and I was like, what are they saying? What is that? I was like, what is your nickname? And at first I thought they were saying Kooky, and it turned out that they were calling her Cukey, because when their gardens were still growing, she was the one that would always sneak out to the garden and eat all the cucumbers. So they called her Cukey. And so her friends in the group were calling her this nickname that I wouldn't have ever asked about. I wouldn't have even known that was a thing. So those group interviews allowed some of that kind of nuanced stuff to come out.
I remember when I dropped you off at Idora Whalen's house, and I just remember this just now. I went over to the, and I can't remember what town that was in.
Was it Gage?
Was it?
I think it might have been the Gage Senior Center.
Yes, and so it was just me and a group of like 5 or 6 people that I was interviewing, and so we were talking and yakking around and different things, and somehow we ended up getting to the introduce yourself section, and that was kind of hard to wrangle because they were so excited to talk. A lot of times they would not introduce themselves, they would just start talking, and you go, okay, calm down, just go back.
Because you don't have a note taker. This is all you.
Yeah, and then so one lady was blind or not able to see very much at all, and we're all just going around. And when we do the interview, we get to everybody's going around interviewing or introducing themselves, and this one lady introduces herself, and then the blind lady says, like, "Jenny, is that you?" And it was her daughter. Like they didn't know. She didn't know her daughter was sitting in the group too,
Yeah.
and I thought that was just kind of funny. But anyway.
Do you remember interviewing the Harrimans? Lorena Harriman and all her daughters?
Oh yeah, yeah.
On Keys.
Mhm.
She was very elderly, but she was like over 100.
Yeah, I didn't think she was going to be able to talk.
And so her daughters were.
I think she was alive. I thought we found her. She was dead. Do you remember we found her? Do you remember how
She was asleep in her chair. Stop! You're terrible.
Well, it's one of those things you have to think about, isn't it?
Well, actually, you're going to tell the story about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell it right now.
So, kind of adding weight to the idea that this cohort or generation of women were in desperate need of having their memories preserved and saved, right? Because they were getting close to, we were getting close to losing all of this. There was at least one time that we know of when we were driving into town, and I can't remember what town it was.
I feel like we were on the highway, like past Keys, but before you get to Boise City. We had to pull over on the shoulder.
Yeah, and we were driving in to do this interview, and here comes a big funeral procession, so let's get out of the way and let them go by. And that was the lady we were going in there to interview. She was heading back out of town in the hearse.
Yeah, she passed away before we got there.
Yeah, so we're like, man, we lost that one.
That was a really poignant moment of thinking, okay, I'm doing something, even if I don't know how to do it, I'm doing something that's really kind of important.
Right.
And urgent. Yeah.
We both sat in the car and thought,
Yeah.
this, because every day that we wait, or literally at that time, like every hour,
Right.
And I don't have to tell anybody in this room that when someone dies like that, you can't go back in and retrieve that memory. You can't, it's gone forever. And so it was that kind of fine line
Yeah.
we were dealing with there.
You know, in a lot of Dust Bowl books that I've read, they tell the story of the coffee box baby and Hazel Shaw remembering, you know, seeing that box out the window on the step.
Tanya doesn't know the story.
Well, that's it. It's Tim Egan has it in her book, in his book. It's in a lot of the documentaries on the Dust Bowl. They'll tell the story of this coffee box baby, that this woman is looking out the window and she sees this box sitting on the steps in the building across. I don't remember, is it the courthouse or the
It's
church?
the Boise City Courthouse.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
So sees it out there all day. A dust storm blows through. It's there. The box is still there. She finally goes and checks on the box, and it's a baby. There's a baby. Someone's left their baby in the box on the courthouse steps, and so then that family ends up adopting that baby, kind of fostering that baby, and it's a little girl. She lives a couple years, and she does end up dying of dust pneumonia later. But we interviewed Hazel Shaw. She was in a nursing home. And she was not in good shape. We needed to have interviewed her about 3 or 6 months earlier than we tried to. And the only thing she could remember the day we were there. And the person who was with her kept saying, she's not really having a good day today. And we're like, okay, we don't have to stay. And he said, well, go ahead and try.
Mhm.
It's sort of in their mind too, sort of like, you don't have a lot of options here. So we sat with her for probably, 20, 30 minutes, and she just kept telling that same story. Even for her, in her state, she remembered that poignant moment too. So even though I can't say, I have this great oral history interview with Hazel Shaw, can say I've heard Hazel Shaw tell the coffee box baby story.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, whereas with, we got her on tape telling that story, and it's pretty amazing.
It is.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that makes me a little sad.
I know. Right.
Mm-hmm.
How do we get there?
Well, we were talking about lots of different things, but we can talk about we got some happy stories though.
Before we get to there, I've noticed there's some men creep in every once in a while. Do you
Yes.
want to talk a
Oh, they
little bit
sneak
about
in.
that?
They're sneaking. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we never told anybody they couldn't come. So if, we called somebody and they said, yeah, I'll come talk to you, me and, my husband will come together. We didn't say, no, you can't bring your husband, right? In fact, one of our first field interviews was with Niles and Marcella Bynum in Woodward.
Yes.
And that was another class differentiation in that story. For sure, because Marcella had a very different life than her husband Niles.
Yeah, that was crazy. So it was in Woodward, and Woodward, like if you talk to a Woodward person about the Dust Bowl, they said, oh yes, we lived in the Dust Bowl, and after a big dust storm, we had to sweep our floors. I said, oh, it got dusty? Oh yeah, we had to sweep the floors, it got dusty. It's like, okay, that sounds really, you had a tough time to sweep the floor. So that was a learning experience that, because people, the further east we got, like the closer to Stillwater we got, those people, the Dust Bowl stories really weren't the Dust Bowl.
But the people telling them would be like, oh, it was bad.
Yeah, they thought it was the Dust Bowl. So we were in Woodward, and Marcella Bynum, come in. She was very clear. She was excited to have us there.
Oh yeah, she was.
But she was excited for us to see her
Collections of things.
her Santa Claus collections, her flower collections, all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this is the Marcella Bynum, display interview or whatever. And stuck in a corner somewhere was her husband, who would chime in occasionally,
Yeah.
and became really the kind of
Right?
the
I was
star.
like, you're of that interview. Because Marcella, she was very, very nice and very welcoming to us. So give the props for that. But she would tell us stories about how, and we didn't have a lot, but at Christmas we'd always have an orange, and Santa Claus would leave us stuff at our stockings.
Yeah, we always got it. We always got a present, or we always got an orange.
Right.
Santa Claus would do this.
And then, I can't even say it. Then Niles would chime in. My parents told us there wasn't a Santa Claus.
My mom said there was no Santa Claus. We didn't get nothing.
It's not funny, but it was funny because it was just so vastly different. And if we had said, no, I'm sorry, no men allowed, right, women only, we would not have seen that in there.
Yeah.
But I also remember the man at Cimarron Heritage Center who I don't think was with anybody. He was just in the museum because we were doing interviews in an open museum.
Yeah, so people will be wandering through, and there we were in the corner, sitting around a table, and this guy was walking through the museum. Next thing we know, he's sitting at the table talking. He's eating a donut, hanging out. Okay, sign this form.
Right? And then he was talking about how he was a hobo for a little while. I mean, it was interesting, but it was not planned.
Yeah. And then sometimes you just get a husband and wife team showing up, things like that. But yeah, so Niles. Was it Niles or
Niles and Marcel.
Bynum, and then the guy that wandered in, and some husbands there too. So yeah, that's how those guys. And it wasn't like we were wanting. But the point of the funding was women's history, and two, it was very clear from just looking through Dust Bowl historiography and bibliographies that this was. If you're reading about the Dust Bowl up to really the time that we did this, you would either hear about government programs to help out the situation. You'd read about the ecology, the weather, and the dryness and the plowing, or you'd read about men's experiences as farmers on the farms. That's what you one of those three things: either the New Deal programs, the meteorological environmentalist approach, or the men's experiences on the farms. Nothing about the women at all. And so I wanted to say to these guys, we've heard your story. And millions of people tell that story. Now we want to hear their, but there weren't enough to cause problems, and we didn't want to be that way.
And I don't recall any time that the women who were sitting at that table changed what they were doing necessarily because somebody's husband or a museum goer happened to sit down. I mean, they after they got past the initial bits of recording, they knew we were interested in them and their story, and so they would continue to just like, okay, you sit over there and eat your donut, and anyway, and tell their story that they wanted to tell.
That's interesting too, because a lot of the women came into these interviews with a canned speech ready to roll. They'd been talked to by other historians and documentary makers before, and so they came in, ready to talk about
Black Sunday,
14th day of April, that kind of thing. And we go, okay, let's back up. So they might go on for like 5 minutes, with the story, then they'd stop, and you're like, now where were you born? We had to go all the way back to start again. But once they realized we wanted to find out, what did you do on a normal day? What did you eat? And what did you wear? And what did you have any brothers and sisters? They kind of let loose once they knew it was kind of free, open range. I mean, they could talk about whatever they wanted.
And it changed our questions we would ask too.
I think we had a few questions, but really, I think the spirit of those interviews was free travel.
Yeah.
They could go. We would follow them.
Right. Yeah. Because if we hadn't, we wouldn't know about gypsies in the Panhandle
and bed bugs
and bed bugs
and
rabbit drives
and beating snakes with golf clubs.
Right. Yeah.
All those things.
Yeah. Eating tumbleweeds.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Oh gosh. Well, we ended up, just because we let them do whatever they wanted to do, really, we would say, we have about an hour and a half, and we'll just, talk and tell some stories. And they were really having a good time. Then they would start to invite us, like, well, what are you doing after this? Like, some places would invite us to come back to the Historical Society meetings and have macaroni salad and, coffee cake and all that. But other times the women, particularly like Cimarron, Texas Beaver County groups, would say, well, you guys should drive out to where the old home was. And they would start to give us directions to their family houses that then sometimes the directions weren't very good.
Yeah.
They would send us out to see things that we had just talked about in the interview, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah. So, and we're going to talk about that today, but maybe we should tell the camera that we were at a conference.
You can.
You want to.
Yeah. We're at the Rural Women's Studies Association Conference in Jonesboro, and we're all presenting in a session. So when I make a reference to talking about this later, that's what we're talking about. Anyway.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, that's right. Always.
So so the way that I bring this up in the session later is going to be that we really got to know these women. I mean, we felt like, we might spend a couple hours with them, but they opened up and let us know a lot of stuff going on, and people were crying and people were laughing.
Yeah.
And so we were like, oh my gosh, you were born 2 miles from here in a sod house. They're like, oh yeah, it's still there.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, let's go see it, right? Let's
How
go.
is there still a sod house there?
Yeah, and so where is it? So they go like, you go out of town, and when you see where there used to be a house, you turn right. There's no house there anymore? No, but turn right there. It's like, okay. So,
Well, one of them, they'd said where they moved the house across the highway. I'm like, how am I
how are we supposed to know that? And they're like, you'll know. So,
and at the end of a long day of interviewing, you're like, okay, all right, great, thank you. So then when we head out of town, this particular one, we head out of town, we're driving along, and there's a weirder looking spot on one side of the highway where it looks like there's like daffodils
there's
planted.
bushes, and you can see where clearly there had been a house.
And there's a house on the other side of the road. And it's empty.
Yeah, okay, this is it.
Let's turn and see what happens.
Yeah, so we turn right and go down a couple miles down the road. There's their
Sure
house. There's
There
their
it
sod
was.
house. Yeah, it's still standing. We went in and took pictures and everything else.
Yeah.
So you tried to do this in a one day out and back?
No, we were.
No.
We
3
were,
days usually
Yeah,
is our
we were out
standard.
there for, at least an overnight, at least 2 days, and a lot of times 3 days. Yeah. So,
But it'd be a day driving out, and then a full day of interviews, and then maybe a couple in the morning and drive back.
So working out the logistics took a little.
yeah, it was
Yeah,
tough
a little
because
effort.
and finding out sometimes a good place to do interviews. I mean, not everybody had a museum
Right.
to do. That's why Cimarron County was so incredible, because they opened up, the Heritage Center opened up their place to us, and it was in the winter. We were out there in January, but they would have the heat on, and they'd have coffee and donuts and a table, and it felt really cozy and
It
nice. It was a good space.
And most of these women you just met once?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the most part?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think really except for when we went back out there, we talked to them more than once.
Right, but we've been back a couple times.
I'm just thinking if a group interview and one story seemed more important or detailed enough to go back and do a single one with that person.
I don't think,
Probably would have hurt the
did it.
relationship with the whole project if you'd have done that.
maybe, it might have, but I don't think that was even contemplated, because we had, 15 more to do, and we weren't I don't think, I would have felt right devoting 2 hours to one person when
Right.
there were 5 or 6 that we could be collecting, so.
Yeah, we were trying to, we wanted to have quality interviews, but our bigger mission was the quantity. How many stories can we collect before there aren't people here to tell them?
Yeah.
So it really did feel like time sensitive, especially after, and that funeral procession was on one of those first trips out there. And that had stuck with me the whole time. It's like, we are not out here to be messing around. Although we had some fun too, right? They let us do some other fun stuff too.
Yeah.
But it was really motivated by how many people are available in a window of time that we can get interviewed.
And it was over the course of a year, 2 years, 2 years, wasn't it? 2000.
I was in the field on the project for 8 months
That's okay.
before I got a job and moved.
It went on for a few months after that.
But it did. You did more after
Yeah.
I was gone. So probably, 2001, 2002.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So the other day you had said you would tell about your first trip out.
Yes. So I had never been that far west in Oklahoma for sure. And so had to lots of logistics, had to arrange for an Oklahoma State University car. And so we're getting in the university car, driving, and this is before Google Maps. He usually would drive, not always, but usually, and I'm the map reader, so I've got the map, and he's like, it's not that hard, it's just there's only one road. But I'd never been, so I didn't know. so I'm like navigating on the map, and I remember we were getting closer and closer into the Panhandle proper, and I look up, and it's almost like we're gonna take off on a plane, because there's a little bit of an incline, and I look out either window, and I said, I can see the curvature of the earth. This is was like
That's what it feels like.
craziness. Yeah. And was really struck by like the openness of it, but then always kind of felt like this weirdo connection there to a place I'd never been before. I'll talk about this a little bit, maybe this afternoon too. It turns out I actually have some, they're not related family, but some families that are in the Panhandle are from the same town that my mom's family is from. And they know all of my family. So if other research I've done, there is sort of like a connection to this part of the world I've never been in. But it was nuts. We go out there and he's telling me, oh yeah, and then out in Kenton is the highest point in Oklahoma. I'm looking like, I can see Texas and Kansas. The highest point, what are you even talking about? Right? But yeah, I remember that first trip out there. It was windy and beautiful.
Yeah, when is it not?
Yeah, beautiful. I think it's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
I have said many times it cuts close to the bone in the Panhandle. Either you kind of love it or hate it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Slap Out, going through Slap Out.
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
stopped there and saw the pictures on the wall of the plane landing on the highway to get gas. Like, I can totally see that happening. That's
the
real.
plane lands at Slap Out.
Yeah,
On
right.
the highway.
Yeah, those pictures are on the wall of the gas station there. So get your T-shirt and take pictures.
Get your Slap Out t-shirts.
So, well, and at the time we were doing these interviews, I was working on a dissertation on sex workers and vice. And so we go to Hooker, Oklahoma, and they are totally embracing all of that.
What's their
The
high school mascot?
Horny Toads.
Hooker Horny Toads.
Yeah. And they have a group. When we were there the first time at Bessie Harold's house, when we were there to do those interviews, one of them said, oh yeah, we have a group, we like to exercise there, the Hooker Streetwalkers. Yeah, that's what this group of older women called themselves. They totally embraced it, which I loved.
We were out at Bessie Harold's house in a dust storm. It was like super windy and the dust was going everywhere. Was that your first time out there? Was that, you said it was windy your first time out there?
But that Bessie Harold's interview wasn't the first time. Thank goodness, because I might not have gone back again. That was the time we were going up on 412 and coming up on that little incline, and we're seeing all the power poles are snapped on the side of the highway because the wind is blowing so hard. We come over that ridge and that wall of tumbleweeds was blowing up the highway, scratching up the car.
Yeah.
I am in the Wild West.
We took a tumbleweed.
We did.
We stole a tumbleweed.
Stole.
Well, we think that's why they were attacking the car.
They're harder than what I thought they would be. I don't know what I thought they would be.
Yeah.
But boy, they're hard.
Yeah, they're vicious.
Rambly, right?
Yeah, so we took one back with us, and then after that we got attacked by other tumbleweeds.
But at Bessie Harold's house, when that storm was
Shingles are
blowing,
blowing off the roof while we're inside there talking.
if you know that, when you listen to that interview, you can hear it on the tape.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, the shingle comes, Bessie, there goes another one. I know. She says, just keep talking.
Do you think it helped with having both of you at some of the interviews?
Yeah, I do.
I mean, just not from the techie side.
No, I do.
But
Because I
the
think
interaction part.
our personalities are such that, if someone is put off by one of us, they like the other one. But most of the time, people sort of like see us together. They know we're having a good time with what we're doing.
Yeah, it's less. Well, I was going to start out. I was going to tell the story about Panhandle State because there's Panhandle State out in Goodwell, and sometimes that's where these ladies thought we were coming from because they would say, "Oh, they're from the university," and they're from Panhandle, they're from Goodwell, and. Then we would get there and they would find out we're from Stillwater. They're like, I'm not talking to this because we were the big school. We were the scary school. And so we weren't Panhandle State people. We weren't Goodwell people. We were Stillwater OSU people. And they would just shut down. Yeah. And because I guess they thought it was more imposing or serious or something scary. But then it would be just us. And they'd be like, "Oh, I'll talk to you guys."
Yeah.
So I think a lot of that was put off or kind of eased by just our general nature. Whereas if it had been one person sitting
it might
there,
have seemed.
Yeah.
But they had nicknames for us that we didn't know about till later.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
There's that one spot.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Like, you can tell it better than I do. because I'll set it up and you can finish it. So we were doing interviews. I don't remember what town we were in, but it was in like that kind of like a barn garage shaped kind of building.
Yeah.
And that's the place we came in, and there was a lady who we were not there to interview who was painting a Volkswagen Bug with nail polish. It's like, okay, this is a little odd, this place that we're at.
Yeah, she had great.
She did. She was an artist. She was very nice.
She was a local artist, the local weirdo artist.
So then we're in the other side of the building, and there's like, it feels like a big like garage. It reminds me of whenever I was a kid and we would go to the local garage. It's sort of like a little office area in the front and this big room with a table in it, and that's where we were going to do interviews. And I had gone to the bathroom or something. And when I come back in the room, he's talking and laughing, and I'm like, oh boy, what is happening now? And that's when you told me, well, you know, they said they have a nickname for you because they can't remember your name.
Yeah, that little girl.
Yes, they'd always call me little girl, and he became that guy,
that
one guy.
Yeah, because they're like, who is it? You go, you know, it's that guy and that little girl. They didn't know our names.
But when they would talk to each other, it's like, oh, because they were coming to do this block interview, and then it's like this group is saying to the next group, oh yeah, I talked to them. It's okay, you can talk to. Who are they? Oh, it's that guy, that one guy, little girl.
That one guy, little girl. That little girl. It's like, oh, okay. So, you know, I think I'll just, you know, but I think given the makeup, the kind of the personality and the psychology of these women, I think it could have been a real disaster sending someone out there who was approaching it from a very dry academic point or a sociological point. You know, I mean, I can name friends of mine who would have blown it by trying to be serious and impress with their big words, you know, and I think we had the right personality for the time, for what was called for, you know. I mean, we kept it. I think it was like Pirates of the Caribbean. I mean, we got so much treasure out of these stories, you know, and so much history and saved memories and everything else. So I have no doubt in my mind that this was the university and the world, you know, got 10 times more than they paid for, you know, through these interviews. But we did it all through the lens or the atmosphere of fun, conversation, camaraderie, you know, just good time. Let's just sit down.
Sincere curiosity. I really just wanted to know what their life was like.
So I think it could have been if somebody had gotten out there, you know, like, well, I'm a PhD in sociology and history, and you know, then it would have been a train wreck, I think. So I mean, it didn't have to be us, but I think it was good that we were doing it.
And I think some of that we kind of stumbled into by, for me anyway, not being so theoretically driven. I mean, I had to learn a lot, and I did learn a lot, but it's sort of like growing with them kind of as they were telling us. That sounds kind of weird, but it's I got better at it as we went. I mean, for the first couple of times we did practice interviews, I was horrible. But I got better as we did it, and it really just became, just let it be about them, let it be about their story, and then just get out of the way. Keep them on the rails, but.
Right, and you know, and every oral historian knows, right, there's that fine line of control where you let them go and do this, tell their story, but okay, let's kind of stay somewhere within sight of the original path.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And so, yeah.
I would think that being younger, and them being older, and they may have perceived you as, I don't know, their children or grandchildren. So, and you're asking not just for yourselves, but for the world in general. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, you know, anytime somebody takes an interest in you, you know, and you feel a little bit of that pride or that interest or whatever. So.
Well, and I think that we really sincerely wanted to know, but then when they would invite us to do stuff, we would come back. Now, I do not like macaroni salad, but if somebody I interviewed asked me to eat it because they made it, I eat it anyway. And I think that's the kind of personality it kind of takes to do this kind of work in that population.
Yeah.
You just, So when they said, why don't you guys come to Santa Fe Trail Days? We did.
Yeah. Yeah, they had that. That was another example of us kind of going a little deeper into the scene. But they have that annual event in the Boise City, Santa Fe Trail Days, DAZE. Santa Fe Trail Days.
But it's legit for the Santa Fe Trail cutoff, Cimarron cutoff for the Santa Fe Trail. So they went through that area. So there is actually like some historical stuff to it. They're like, you're history people, you would like this.
Yeah.
But then when we went, it was really sort of community activity that we were part of.
Yeah, I mean, they invited us to be in there. I don't know if they invited us to be in the parade. We got the parade.
We got in the parade.
I think it's how where they introduced you as that guy at that point.
Yeah, I don't know what they said. But we were we were in their parades and we visited their houses and we hunted down their sites and really came to know, be involved in these people's lives. I mean.
And, for us as scholars at work, because we built up not just a relationship with the people we interviewed, but with the caretakers of those histories. So like the people who run the museums and the people who run the senior centers. So when we have gone back, in 2011 we went back, and in 2019 we went back for research stuff, they kind of gave us free reign to do whatever we wanted to do when we got there.
You did what you said you were going to do.
We did what we said we were going to do. And when we came back, we're still curious and still very respectful of the spaces they have. So they kind of let us do some things that I don't know if everybody would be able to do.
Right. I mean, it's pretty cool because they, we were like, hey, Jody and Steven Shelly. Oh.
Well, and I said, I don't know if you remember us. And she says, of course I remember you. And I was like, oh God.
But, so that would have been like 29. Well, that was in 2011 when they were at course, I remember you. But then we moved back in 2019. They were literally like, just let us know when you're done looking around. We'll come lock up, or we'll make sure lock the house when you leave.
That's right.
So we had, they just, all of that kind of paid off. But it's not why we were doing it, but it's indicative of the relationships we made when we were out there.
Well, when you were doing, did you have a goal in mind of what or if you would do anything with them yourselves?
No.
While I was doing the interviews, no.
Not at all.
It was just for the library?
Yeah, well, I was totally focused on saving the history. I mean, I didn't care if it was for the library, I didn't care if it was for whatever. I just thought, this is a chance to do this, and we're not going to mess it up.
And for me, it was a women's history project that I thought really mattered. And so I just, was committed to collect as much as we could at the time we were doing it. It really wasn't until 10 years later that I called you. I got my job at McKendree, and I don't remember if you had already taken your job at Fort Smith or it was all about the same time. And I said, hey, I have an idea. Let's write an article about what we did with that oral history project.
Yeah.
And so,
And then we were like, oh, okay, now we need to find a bunch more stuff. So we went back out there and then back out there again and different things. So.
And then I said, hey, I have an idea. Let's write a book.
And is that where you're working on now?
That's what we're working on now.
Yeah. So almost 25 years later.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Which speaks to why we do this.
Exactly.
Mm, yeah. So, and putting that collection together in the bios of the women, people have gone in and where they can, they've found out when those ladies passed away, and some of them, I mean, I'm looking through there just the other day, I was, and it hit me that, wow, it was just like 2 years after we interviewed them, and not very long, a lot of them, went away. So it was, we were doing the right thing at the right time.
And I don't know how it would have changed it, but I feel like, knowing myself, the interviews would not have been as good and rich and broad as they are if I had thought, what am I going to do with this whenever I get done?
Right.
It was really just about having conversations with people.
Let them loose.
Let's see what happens.
Play the fiddle.
That's it.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
We'll make some jello, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
I know. Spoons too.
I played spoons and you played the fiddle. I remember that interview thinking, this is the worst interview ever. And then I look back, I'm like, yeah, actually it's pretty fun.
He gave me rattlesnake rattles. You put them in your violin for good luck. Yeah, mine are in there. Yeah. So
That was an interesting duo because her friend, tell me if I'm messing up the story. Her friend was somebody we had just interviewed or we were just getting ready to interview, but we didn't know that they were connected to each other.
this is the Fox,
Yeah.
and
I can't remember.
okay. So I don't know where you're gonna go with that.
No, I was just thinking about how sometimes we would hear the conversations and know, oh, these people are all connected together. This is really kind of cool. And then other times it's that there's this really strong. They grew up next to each other and were best friends, but we didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
So we didn't know we were arranging the interviews. You could have put them together.
Right. Yeah. Because one would tell a story, a crazy story, from their perspective, and we made a fort out of tumbleweeds and climbed inside, and then
I remember that.
and then I got in trouble, and then we go,
a different trip sometimes.
Yeah. 2 months later, we're in a different place talking to a bunch of people like, we made forts with tumbleweeds and I got in trouble. It's like, you were with her.
And it turns out that was the same story.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was with her. We all did that.
Well, that probably impressed them too, that you were connecting the dots.
Yeah.
I was going to say that the fiddle playing was interesting because I don't think it really gave us anything. I can't remember anything really good
The interview?
content wise.
Yeah.
I mean, because it was one of those situations where they weren't really in the bad part of the Dust Bowl. They didn't really experience it. I mean, they had their stories and whatnot, but what was that? We should have run a map. What was the county that it's right there? Like it's maybe the Vici. What county is Vici in?
I don't know.
Is it Dewey or Harper?
Maybe Harper.
Oh, what's Harper?
Harper, yeah.
Yeah.
If it's not, Harper's the county.
Harper's the county you're thinking of, regardless. Yeah.
And so, like, you talk to Beaver County, you're like, oh yes, we have the Beaver County Museum, and everybody you want to talk to will go there, and we can put you in touch with blah blah blah, all these people. And then you go to Harper County, and you're like, history museum, what history? No, it's like, what happened here?
Right.
What causes a county to have a county history museum and resources and people that are interested and volunteers and everything else, and then you go across the county line, it's like,
Not interested. Yeah.
yeah, that lady.
Bond.
Yes, yeah, she took us to the Harper County Historical Society.
Yeah.
And it was in a tin shed in her backyard.
Yeah.
And she goes, that's it. And go, yeah, well house, it looked like a pump house out in the backyard. And that's where she had stored all the county records because nobody else was going to do it.
Right.
And she didn't. It's like, wow, what causes one county to just implode and have no idea or motivation to save itself, and the other county is just busting, with enthusiasm. And that was one thing that was really, really driven home. Some personality clash or wrong personalities.
Maybe.
You get an Idora Wayland in there, nobody's going to want to work with that.
Right.
Versus you get somebody that's nurturing and easygoing, and all of a sudden everybody builds up.
That's your next article.
There you go.
Maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, but it was Harper County that was their historical society was that.
I forgot that it was a shed, but that's right.
Corrugated tin shed. It's really like 5 by 5.
Right.
You
were saying something earlier that made me think about it, that when we were doing early interviews in like Woodward or in anywhere around the Enid area, right? We were talking to people, they'd be like, "Oh, it was so bad here. It was so bad here. It was so bad
to
here."
sweep the floors.
Oh my gosh! And then the farther you get out west, one of the things that struck me in Cimarron County by the time we got there, people are like, dust storms, they happened, right? And like, this is people where you can't see your face and you're putting tents over your brother with stiff person syndrome in the living room. And like, you're going through these really traumatic things. And they're just like, just kind of life.
It really was like, the louder they talked about it, the less they experienced it, like, oh yes, it was terrible. We had to sweep afterwards. And then the people that were actually buried up to their necks in it were like, eh.
Whatever. Yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah.
And I use the digital collection in my classes when I teach, the 1930s, and when I teach women's history and environmental history, I use that collection. And my students are always struck by, it's like, they seem so happy. I didn't really expect that. It's like, well, you have to remember that for the most part, these are people who were younger. They're kids or young adults, new brides, that are being interviewed. They're like, yeah, but Dr. Lemons, I'm really happy. It's like, well, then we sort of had flesh it out. It's like, for them, in the heart of the Dust Bowl, what Steve and I call the yolk of the Dust Bowl, and the people who are really in that center spot, this isn't the forefront. This is the background. This is the context. This is the situation they're reacting to, but it's not deriving they're just living their life, and it just happens to be in the middle of a dust storm. So, which is nutty, but our data seems to reflect that they didn't see it as an extreme circumstance, at least as they're recalling it 70 years later.
Yeah, they just dealt with it.
Mm-hmm.
Were you aware enough to realize this while you were doing them, or is this just upon reflection that you?
Well, we didn't know. But in my session later on, I talk about how it's difficult to pin down. It's difficult to pin down where the Dust Bowl is, or where the Dust Bowl was. Yeah. And so one of the, was it the HURT that did the study where he gave people maps?
Porter did that.
Yeah.
Jess Porter does that.
Enid, I think. But he's
a geographer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you?
Yeah.
Like personally?
Yeah. Good guy.
My husband was a geography professor, and he was one of his students.
Well, he seems really nice.
Yeah.
He's great. Yes.
Yeah. So he did this thing where he gave people maps and said, draw where the Dust Bowl was. And people are drawing like over Chicago. They don't know. Yeah, they don't know where the Dust Bowl was. People have giant circles around the United States, and so we kind of figured out, we were saying, where was it, right? And so we get people that say, yeah, I lived in the Dust Bowl. Okay, we'll interview you. They might have lived in Enid, or somewhere, and they talk about having to sweep the floor or whatever. Then we go a little bit further west, and it gets okay. And so I think we didn't know until we got out to the Panhandle, and we started to see map after map after map show, the bullseye, the Dust Bowls on Cimarron County, and we were like, okay,
there we go.
Yeah, here's where the Dust Bowl was, and you guys out there, okay, we're closer to the 35 or the Oklahoma City.
I wasn't doing, though, back to your main question, I wasn't doing a lot of interpretation of any of it in the moment. I was just listening and was excited and engaged and, just trying to.
I imagine on the way back to Stillwater, you two had some interesting debriefing sessions.
Right? Yeah, like 4, 5, 6 hours of talking, what about that? How'd that go?
Right.
Things like that.
Yeah.
What are we going to do next time differently, and what do we need to not do, and so on. Things like
Learn some things not to ask.
Like?
So we would ask. We would ask about Steinbeck, Grapes of Wrath, and then and then we ask about Woody Guthrie, and we sort of had in fact, we started to call those Woody Guthries. If you ask, the conversation's going really great, and we ask a question, and it just became like the death stare. It's like, oh, that was a Woody Guthrie. Mark that down. Don't ask that again.
Yeah, because I forgot which conversation it was. We had a good conversation going, and I asked about Woody Guthrie because he'd written songs about the Dust Bowl, and brought his name up, and everybody was like, it got real quiet, and they didn't like Woody Guthrie. They didn't like Grapes of Wrath. They didn't like anything like that. And so it would bring the conversation.
Screeching out.
The immediate stop. And so we learned not to do that.
So lots of note taking in the car while you were driving. I'd be writing down like, that was a Woody Guthrie, that was a Woody Guthrie, don't ask that again. And then, I remember the debriefing of the Idora Whalen experience of like, she was actually really, really nice, and she gave me cookies. And you're like, what? Like, after she knew you weren't there, it was all fine.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't want to, I'm good with all that.
I was trying to think, how many trips would you have made how, I mean, there's 46
Oh, gosh.
interviews, but they weren't, I mean, you did more than one
Mhm.
interview while you were out
Yeah.
there, so
Yeah, I mean,
at least 30 or 40, or at least 30, I would think.
We did a lot of trips. I don't know how many. I'd have to go back
I have
and
no
count.
idea.
It doesn't
Yeah.
matter, I would just,
Yeah.
that's a lot of travel back and forth
Yeah.
and time to discuss,
Yeah.
which is nice
It was-
after you've done some heavy lifting.
Well, and then Steve was a great travel partner, and sort of like you always, I just remember you very much like if we did a bunch of like heavy interviews that day, you're like, okay, let's go see some dinosaur tracks. And I'm like, what? Dinosaur tracks? And so you drive out and explore things.
you know, there's a lot to see out in the Panhandle.
There
and,
is.
So we were always taking side roads here and
Right.
there,
Yeah.
see different
But
things.
that's important because otherwise you could just go, oh, right, how am I gonna, how am I gonna do with all this?
Yeah, no, I felt like getting closer to their history, you know, and it's a neat place to go. I mean, and I explored around out there before any of this ever, you know, I mean, decade before any of that, but knowing these people's stories brought us even closer to that
Yeah.
landscape, you know,
Yeah.
and things like that.
Did you discuss the no man's land part of that story?
The designation of no man's land for that? No, they would,
Probably would have not liked that either.
well, I don't think if they would have even known what to do with that. I mean,
Fair enough.
Can recall Odalie Bond at the end of that interview. She was talking about her dad, and that people were saying, like, why do you want to stay out there in that all of that dust and nothing's growing? Why do you want to keep your family out there? And she says that her dad's looking out, you look at all of this land. Where else could I get all of this land? Right? We're gonna stay here because this is our home. And if it gets really bad, we can eat snake. Okay. So I don't even know if no man's land would have had any, because for them it was home.
yeah, I think that might have been a Woody Guthrie, you know, to bring that up, because they wouldn't have known exactly what, I'm assuming here that I'm putting that on them unfairly, I think, but they probably wouldn't have known exactly what you were talking about. But two, I mean, like we started off this conversation with, that it's not an area of great diversity.
Mm-mm.
So, you know, the people we talked to were white, lower class white people. And so, you know, you talk about anybody else, and there's a little bit of a little bit of a,
Yeah.
you know, like, you know, Native Americans, people,
Yeah.
you know, people of color, gypsies. There's always like, you know, so you can be all fun and games and
Yeah.
niceness and eating donuts and drinking coffee and everything else, but you know that ice gets pretty thin,
Yeah.
and you better not walk out on there sometimes. You're gonna
Yeah,
get more
that's
than you
true.
bargained for.
That's true.
So, I mean, mainly for my door, Wayland.
She doesn't like you on the phone. She would like you just fine in person.
But she's an example of what happens if you go the wrong way with questions.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's just made me thinking about when the first time they started to talk about gypsies, and I never thought to ask that question. And they first started talking about gypsies in the Panhandle. What are you, what?
gypsies.
Because we were ready to talk about hobos, because that's what, I read about, hobos and hobo culture and hobo symbols and all of that. I'm like, well, I don't really remember hobos, but the gypsies, when the gypsies would come to town, I was like, what is happening right now? Right?
Yeah.
And then it became one that could kind of like carefully interject that question into other interviews. It's like, well, we've heard other people say about, outsiders, like maybe like gypsies, like, oh yeah, and then they would tell you. Yeah, it was interesting to kind of figure out where are the kind of like conversational landmines and how to steer around them, but still try to capture whether or not those stories, how far over those stories went. Yeah.
So if you live by the railroad tracks, you get hobos. Yeah. But one of the things I was interested in was trying to document hobo codes, like the symbols that hobos were supposed to put coming into or out of towns, or areas that would say this is a mean town, or this is a nice town, there's a nice person lives here, or whatever. Nobody knew anything about hobo codes. And I'm wondering, that kind of made me think, I wonder if that's all just made up. It's that kind of mythology. I've since read people also saying they thought that more was made of hobo codes than actually was used, more, they were made to seem more commonplace. But none of these ladies knew anything about hobo codes. They just knew every once in a while somebody would show up at the back door looking for some work. They'd always try to do some work and then get a place to sleep or a meal or something.
It seemed the standard meal was a fried egg sandwich. That's what you give somebody who showed up, right?
What's up, what?
A fried egg sandwich.
That's your hobo meal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get the eggs out, Mom. We got a hobo coming.
You got a chicken. I mean, Mrs. Barrett, make sure you got some chickens.
And it's protein.
Yeah. Yep.
Were there any other things that just surprised you, lessons that you learned that you didn't expect?
That's a good question.
Well, I think that from the initial time of trying to get things started, I realized how careful you had to be in approaching people about oral history projects. I mean, that's one thing, like, you can't just kind of barge in, and I mean like on the phone or just psychologically, you can't barge in on someone and say you're doing a project and they're going to immediately help you. There was some nuance, and you had to be careful with how you put it out there. I think I might have kind of started in on that with a little ego, or why wouldn't they want to help us, and that kind of thing. And you realize, no, you're going to have to be nice and talk your way into that. And so for me, that was kind of a lesson that I always carried.
Yeah. I think, and then coming out the other side of that, like careful going in, but then I don't think I really anticipated when we started this how connected I would feel or how protective I would feel of these people and their stories, and how anything that I do that is related to these, I really want to get it right. I really want to, the integrity of them trusting us with it. I feel like there's this, they trusted us after they got to know us. They trusted us to capture these memories, and I don't want them to be, willy-nilly. I don't know what about it. I feel really, really like I'm a part of that place and that space. I told my kids that they can take my dust to the Panhandle of Oklahoma, and they were not surprised at all.
And it would blow black.
That's right. Yeah. It'll come right back to you like a boomerang. Right. But when we went out to Santa Fe Trails Days with a Z.
Yeah.
In 2011, my oldest was little. He was about 5 or 6 years old. We went out there to this event, and we were at the fairgrounds at the Rotary Club pancake breakfast. And we were in line waiting for pancakes, and the Santa Fe Trail Days queen was shaking hands, and my little kid thought that was really awesome. Somebody with the cowboy boots and a big crown. And so we were waiting for her pancakes, and people kept saying, "Oh, well, who are you here to see?" They would assume that if you're out here, you must be related to somebody or know somebody.
Because you weren't from there.
We weren't from there. Very clearly, we weren't from there.
Yeah, they knew that.
But they were kind, and they would say, "Who are you here? Who are you visiting?" And we said, "Oh, because he's in line with us, and oh, we did these interviews 10 years ago. Like, oh my gosh, welcome back. Da-da-da, here's your pancakes." I remember an older gentleman, and I don't think we had any connection to him at all. If I have that wrong, correct me. But we're standing we're eating our pancakes, we're throwing our trash away, and my little guy's with me, and he's like, "Hey, I heard you're back, that you guys did those interviews." Like, yeah. He pulls in his pocket, gives my kid $5. Like, what is happening right now? It's like they really had adopted us as sort of foster kids to the whole county after that experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, my kid's like, "I'm coming back to the Panhandle all the time."
I get $5.
Pancakes and $5.
Yeah.
But it really, I did not anticipate how connected I would feel to that community.
Yeah, that was 10 years later, and they were like, "You guys,"
Yeah.
and we came back then
9 years
9 years
after
after
that.
and they were
And they
still
were like, "Hey!"
hey.
Yeah.
So
Uh-huh.
yeah, it was really nice. It was really nice to feel like we'd done that and created those ties and those friendships and things.
And like you said earlier, I feel like we made good on our promise to give those things back to them. It's like we are recording this, but it's really, I mean, for us, but it's also for you. And to see those transcripts in the museum in 2019, like, yeah, we did our thing. We did good.
Yeah.
So,
Did they get copies of the audio as well? Do you know? I
Yeah.
think they
Yeah.
probably
So, yeah.
did.
mm-hmm. At the centers that, so not like every person got an audio, but if the museum or the contact person that comes set us up.
I made you were gone, and I took a huge trip out, and I dropped off collections, cassette duplicates, and transcripts to I don't know what, like
Everywhere.
yeah, I mean like from Harper County all the way around Woodward out to Kenton and back again. I made one giant trip of dropping off.
So that was part of the project development from the get-go. You were one of the
Yeah.
plan to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you will receive
Yes.
these.
That was in
copies.
the initial pitch, all right, to get people to trust us and invest in us to do it.
And we did it. So.
We did it.
You did it. So let's segue into your other partner, Jennifer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jennifer really, this wouldn't have ever happened without her and her energy to secure those funds, because I'm going back a little bit, right? I was hired by Heather Lloyd, who was kind of reaching the end of her time as head of the Special Collections, University Archives, and I'm not sure. She was kind of I think she was kind of a placeholder for SKUA. She didn't really advance it much, but she kept things there, right? I mean, but when Jennifer got in, I can remember her like doing all kinds of things. I mean, like instantly learning. She got humidity measurements and started temperature gauges and was sitting them around. And she was going around taking humidity readings from different parts of the collections, and she was really a go-getter. And so she found out that there was this money out there, and immediately went out for it and got it, and that's what funded the whole thing. I mean, it funded our equipment and our being able to travel out there and all of that. So.
And she did some of the interviews?
She did. I did one. I know I did at least one interview with her. And I took the role as note taker for that interview, and she asked the questions. And you could just tell this was a passion project for her, that she was interested in making sure it was done right and done well. And that really made me feel more confident in what I was doing, that I did something that mattered to the institution as well as just to me personally. And she was just, Jennifer Paustenbaugh, my like most vivid memory of her, first of all, in her orange suit. I thought, there's very few people who could pull off an OSU orange suit, but she could. She owned that suit. But I remember telling her, hey, I just started this project, and I'm really excited about what we're doing this project, but I had this opportunity. I don't know how I feel about this job. It was supposed to be a practice interview. It was a practice application. And then they said, yay, you get a phone interview. And then I was going to do this practice phone interview. As my advisors were telling me, well, you're not really ready for a job yet, but you have a chance to do a practice interview. This would be a good experience. And I went to Jennifer and I said, I can't. I have to be like this day because I have to do this phone interview. And she let me do it in her office. And I remember her saying to me, okay, so here's your thing. You are young and you're energetic and you're bubbly, and you need to make that come through on the phone. And I remember her sort of coaching me when I was sitting at her desk getting ready to take that phone call.
Yeah.
And I got that job. I had no business getting that job, and I got that job.
Yep.
So
She was that kind of person. She found out I was going to Chicago with my wife. We were going to just go tour, just go take a trip to Chicago to see the city. And she gave us like a giant gift certificate to a famous restaurant there. And I can't think of the name of the restaurant. I think it's closed now. It's the German
Oh.
I know where you're talking
Yeah.
about. I don't remember the name. I know where you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yep.
She goes, here, you gotta eat here. And she gave that to us. I thought, how nice was that?
Yeah.
I mean, her kind of officialness, like in getting us the money and knowing about all that and working the administrative part of it, I think allowed for us to be able to go out and do what we did
Yeah.
with our interviews and things. And I thought it was interesting too, that when Shelly left, Jennifer and I went out on a number of interviews. One, overnight, she somehow wrangled, we slept at these people's house.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. I mean, but, you know, because I don't know these people. We got there late at night and they're like, come on in. And you're, you know, sleeping in some basement bedroom kind of thing. But she was very nervous.
Yeah.
She was very nervous about in the interview. You know, she was like, how do you guys do this? What do we do now? And I go, well, all right, you know, you're my boss, but okay,
All right,
here's
here
what
we
we
go.
do.
Yeah.
You know, so I kind of ran her through the drill and what we need to do and things. But she was very excited. What interview did you do with her?
I'm trying to remember. I can't. It was in Beaver County, I think.
Mm-hmm. I have a
I'd
picture.
have to look it up and see.
I have a picture of her in Beaver County Park. It's like
Yeah.
Sand Dune Park or something.
Huh.
I can't remember what the name of that park was.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
But we were out. She was open. She was a business suit lady,
Mm-hmm.
but she was open to a little stomping around, you know, a little exploring. No, not
I don't remember which interview we did together, but I remember in that interview, she kind of the same thing, because I was setting up the equipment and doing the note taking. I gave her the question sheet, but she was totally cool with going off of the sheet. And I was like, yeah, I'll be flexible with that. But I remember she was very strategic. We were getting in the car. She drove. We got in the car to leave Stillwater to go to this interview that she had. I hope this is okay. I've picked something for us to listen to, a book on tape for us to listen to while we're going. And she had picked Out of Dust.
Oh,
To
nice.
listen to. So she's very, very low, sort of like attention to detail, but also sort of like in the spirit of that project.
Yeah.
So it's pretty fantastic.
She was the right person to be at the helm when this project was going on.
I remember her telling that question came about if there were any information in SCUA from women from the dirty 30s.
Thank you.
And what her neighbor had asked her back when she first moved here or something, and that kind of spurred some of this.
Her neighbor.
Well, our very first
I think that was our very first interview.
Enid Pritchard was
There
her
you go.
neighbor, and so Enid Pritchard had told Jennifer a story about taking a rake and drawing a pattern, like a Zen garden, almost like drawing a pattern in her front yard because she had no grass and it was all dirt. And Jennifer told me that story whenever I interviewed. I said, these are the kind of stories that we want to capture. I said, those are the kind of stories I want to learn about.
Yeah. So.
Well, did you hear any stories that you didn't expect to hear? I mean, you had done some background research, but did you hear some that?
All of these stories.
Right?
I mean, there were so
Yeah.
many stories. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
That's a loaded question.
What's it?
That's a loaded question.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, but I mean, in things that we could say out loud, there were a ton. Like, we're talking to these ladies, and they're like, well, you know, so these are like your great grandmas, right?
Mhm.
And they're like, but they're like, well, sometimes you have to get on a horse and chase the cattle down and punch a hole in them to let the gas out.
What?
Were you?
What is happening?
Yeah, and you're like, I didn't catch that last part. You punch a hole in the cattle to let the gas out, and they're like, yeah, we'd have a knife. Then it would be a knife we would use for that, and we would have to ride up by them, and the cattle would get into poisonous weeds and stuff, and they would start to swell up like with gas, and they would explode. I mean, they would kill them, and so if they found out the cattle had been over the Jimson weed or wherever, they would have to ride up, or if you could walk up, but you know, and then they would have a place where they'd always do it, and they would punch a hole in the cow, and then the gas would all come out, and they get. It's like, before you go to school, make sure you poke a hole in all
Punch
the
the
cows, you
Yeah.
know? And they're like, sometimes they would get all scarred up there. You had to go somewhere else to poke a hole in them. And it's like, I did not think I'd be hearing about this.
As you're like sipping your coffee and eating your cookie, you tell us this crazy story. What are you
Yeah.
talking about?
Did you control your reactions
No.
somewhat?
No, I
Or
mean,
just
you
go
just,
with it?
well, I mean, they wanted it to be, they wanted
Yeah.
you to react, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sometimes you'd have to, you'd have to react. Like if something was, you knew something was supposed to be funny, you'd laugh.
Uh-huh.
Or if you
Yeah.
were supposed to ask another question, you would.
Right.
But sometimes it was just like sheer amazement. And like that one, right? And it was like, oh my God.
That's when having the group interviews also works to our advantage, because then they can talk amongst themselves while we regain some composure of what just happened.
So what do you think
Yeah.
was a good story that you
Oh
were
my gosh. Yeah, well, I can't top that one. I think probably hearing about gypsies, though, I was like, is that a thing? How is that a thing? Of course, I was pretty young and naive. Like, I hadn't been to most of the places that they're talking about. So they would talk about things. You'd be like, oh, yeah, I've been there. I'm like, what is that? I don't know what's happening right now. Right? A lot of times. Even like talking about the farm machinery that they're using. And some of that I was like, I grew up on a farm, but not that kind of farm. I don't know what you're talking about. So-
Gypsies was an eye-opener, finding out that
Definitely.
there were gypsies migrating around through the counties out there.
Well, I had read about rabbit drives, but I didn't realize the kinds of things people would do with rabbit drives. And there was one interview story that they went on their first date. This couple went on their first date to a rabbit drive.
That's not what I would do on my first date.
No, and
It would be first and last.
right?
I
Well,
think
they-
I might have been.
that is not true. They ended up getting married. And but the story that the woman is telling is like, we go to this rabbit drive. I'm like, she's talking about the rabbit drive, right? And then she goes, what she remembers. And then her boyfriend, now husband at that time, had a leather jacket on, and he caught it on the barbed wire fence and tore a hole in his jacket. After you clubbed some rabbits, that's what you're okay.
So I don't know where it was, but rabbit drives, right? They would take clubs, baseball bats or golf clubs or whatever, and they would round up all these rabbits that were eating the vegetation,
Right.
and they would just slaughter. They would just beat rabbits to death. It was yeah. I thought, that is so brutal, and I don't know where it was, but you don't take guns to a rabbit drive.
Elkhart, Kansas. That's where we read it.
Okay,
Yeah.
because
Uh-huh.
everyone's standing, you heard the rabbits in a circle, and you don't just point all the guns at each
Because
other.
the first time they did it, they shot each other in the foot.
You shot each
It
other.
was in the paper.
So
They're like, don't do that.
don't bring any guns to the rabbit drive.
Right.
We're using clubs so you don't shoot each other.
Right?
Oh my
It's
gosh.
just-
Well, I read
and
another.
people tell those stories, and it's that's just what we did. Why would you? What?
Yeah. I remember kind of another really eye-opening story was them picking the Russian thistles to eat,
Uh-huh.
which was the Russian thistle grows up to be the tumbleweed.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
in its
It-
early stages, it looks like greens. It looks like
It looks like lamb's quarter a little bit.
just a fat green leaf.
Yeah.
And the kids were sent out to pick those to eat. That's what they would have for dinner.
The people would eat.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so the kid, and this was too something different, but the kids really didn't think much about it. That's what mom was making for dinner. They were supposed to go out and pick as much of it as they
They
could,
did.
and they would, fry it up in a pan and with some lard or whatever grease, and then eat it. And they thought that was just great, but later on we found out, because they had nothing else to eat. I mean, there's a you interview a kid, they don't think anything
Right.
about it, right?
Yeah.
But then you interview the county health agent, they're like, these people are starving to death.
Uh-huh.
They're eating weeds. They're out there
Yeah.
picking weeds to eat, and so that was kind of an eye opener to find out that you're eating the tumbleweed plants.
Yeah. What's happening here?
It's just a very strong case for resilience, isn't it?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
All of these women and men, but women too.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they just kept going and persevering.
I can remember the first couple of times, and we stopped asking it, but the first couple of times is like, well, did you know people who left the area, because we were interested in interviewing people who had lived through the Dust Bowl but had stayed. That was sort of our niche that we were kind of going for in
Right.
our criteria.
That had lived there through the experience.
And had stayed put. So we would ask, did you know people who left? And they were like, how are we going to leave? I mean, maybe we want to, but we don't have a car. We don't have tires. We don't have gas. We don't have money. Right? We're not going anywhere. We're eating tumbleweeds.
Right. So a lot of the, you see, this is not always true, but you see the pictures of the Okies on the road, right, and how run down they look and everything. Those are the rich people.
Exactly.
Right. Those are the people that had the means to get out.
Yeah. And that is part of why that when those became Woody Guthrie questions, when you'd ask about Steinbach grapes of wrath, they're like, well, first of all, they didn't even come out here. Second of all, that's not from our part of the state. And third of all, who can leave? We can't leave. We don't have the resources to leave.
Some people would say they stayed because it was their land and they were going to see it through, and others would be like, well, we didn't have any way to leave.
Right.
We didn't have any way to leave.
I left this project when I took that job in Utah. I moved out to Price, Utah for the college, to work at the College of Eastern Utah. And I remember driving south out of Price, and I was going over to, I was going to a conference in Las Vegas. And I was driving through sort of that part of Utah, and I get into this town in Emory County, Utah in Emory County. And I remember looking around going, this place looks like Oklahoma. It's so weird, right? And so whatever. And then years later, well, I guess maybe not years later, but after that trip, I find out, it's like, what's the story with Emory County? They go, oh, well, that town was founded by a bunch of Okies who were heading to California and couldn't get there. And so they had stopped right there and built that town. It's like, well, it feels like Oklahoma because that's who lives there. It's all these people who have this tie back to this project I left to come to that job. It's a gift that keeps on giving, right? It keeps bumping back into me.
Yep.
So how's it bumping into you right now? You said you were
Mhm.
getting ready to, are you doing research on a book or something?
We are. So we went back out to Cimarron County in 2019, had visions of doing a project that was kind of like a primary source reader kind of thing. We wanted to bring more attention to the oral history interviews and to be able to use those in some capacity that, so they could get some traction of people knowing those stories. And so that primary source was not the right project to do, but that's what brought us back out in 2019. And Steve will talk about this, and we'll talk about it together this afternoon. We discovered some field level copies of Home Demonstration Club reports. So agents that are in the field in Cimarron County, recording what's happening, they're taking photographs, and they're all in these books that were tucked away in a file cabinet that nobody knew they were there. I don't think. We're poking around, we find them. It's like this. We knew. I'm getting cold just thinking about it. We knew this was something special. This set of records is really something incredible. And what it's allowing us to do is to connect the mothers who lived in the 30s in the Dust Bowl with their daughters who we interviewed with the Oral History Project. And so we're working on a book project now that sort of that takes those pieces and puts it together. There is one individual, for sure and for certain, who we interviewed as a narrator in 2001, who was in those reports as a teenager at 4-H. So we have a longitudinal study of one person. Yeah.
You almost need to go back and get the next generation.
All right.
Next
So
generation.
it's really interesting.
Just to connect it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really interesting stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So you said you use them in your classroom.
I do use in my class.
Do you as well?
Yeah, I typically, in my public history courses, will listen to those when we're on our oral history segment, and we talk about, I'll bring out those stories.
Mm-hmm.
They're always exciting, fun to talk about.
I have students who have taken like a general survey reviews and that take public history or environmental history, and they'll say, oh, I listen to the Dust Bowl interviews because they're excited to hear more of them. I said, well, you can listen to them anytime you want to.
Yeah, you don't have to wait for us. All right?
But it was interesting that even the students are like, oh, we love hearing you on those tapes, and all the stories are so great, and it just makes sense what you're saying. And I have them read Tim Egan's book sometimes, and when they read that book, and then they go, oh my gosh, the women in that collection are so different than what I read in this book. It's like, well, some of them are the same people. But it's really cool to see my work impact my
So
students.
that may be when we get bumps in the statistics of usage.
Maybe.
Sometimes there's a bump and we wonder why.
It could be her class, yeah.
Well, do you remember the last interview you did for the project?
Oh my gosh.
And if you were feeling, sad that it was
Well,
coming to an end? Or...
I don't know because I didn't know it was going to be my last interview.
Oh,
Whichever
okay.
one was my last one, I didn't know it when I did it.
Okay.
I remember though, I kept a journal while we were doing most of those interviews, and I can go back and look at the first trip out there and what I'd written about, and when we went to Santa Fe Trail Days, what I'd written about being in that parade, what I'd written about, seeing the dinosaur tracks, what I'd written about. And I do know that once I moved to Utah, I was incredibly sad that I had not finished that project. I mean, I'm kind of, I'm a drill sergeant's daughter. I like to finish what I start, right? But I remember, getting ready to start teaching, full-time gig, tenure track. This is what you're supposed to be working for, and being really sad that I wasn't doing field work in that project anymore. So I remember that for sure.
I remember talking with Jennifer, and we were kind of playing around with the idea of, well, how do we know when we're done?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when do we run out of money, or if our goal is to collect the memory of people that lived in the Dust Bowl, is it done if we haven't collected everyone's memory? Or do we say, okay, you're sitting here, but we're going to end with you. We're not going to do you. It's like, maybe you have the greatest story of all, right? And I remember talking about that with her, and she was like, well, you got to stop sometime. And I go, do we? And she was like, yeah, I think so. But I'm not sure if, I remember going, that's when we spent the night in those people's house, and we were kind of just tail ending it. We were wrapping up the things, and I'm not sure if she did any more interviews after I left or not. I don't know, but there wasn't one specific interview where we said that's the end, that's the last one. I think it was just kind of like, well, we probably need to wrap this up, because how do you end it, right? It didn't have a natural endpoint.
Well, then before I forget it, I want to ask you how you got Dust, Drought, and Dreams Gone Dry, but how that title came about.
Well, Steve likes to give titles that have 3 words. That's we have done a lot of conference presentations together over 20 plus years, and if he picks the title, it always has 3 words, always.
I think that's juvenile. I think that's like, I'm not proud of the fact that I immediately go to a 3-word alliteration title, but it rolls off the tongue, right? It sounds good. I kind of, I don't know when that title arose. I do remember.
I remember sitting there at our workspace on the 5th floor coming up with the title, but I don't remember the timing of it.
Yeah, it just sounded good.
So it's both before you left the project, or
right?
The
yeah.
I thought you had said that you were walking by a dumpster or something.
Yeah, on the way.
Probably.
Well, when I lived at that house on Elm Street, right up from Hong Kong Inn, if you remember that was. There was, so you could walk up the main street or the alley to get to the library, because you walk up, past Eskimo Joe's and Moral Hall and everything else. And so I think I was walking up behind my house up the alleyway, and there was a dried out, kind of bleached out looking board just sitting there, and I thought that'd be perfect for the exhibit, because we were putting together the first exhibit on the project. And I grabbed it, and I got to work, and I think in whiteout I painted Dust, Drought, and Dreams Gone Dry on that board. I bet that board's still in special collections. Because we used to, and I don't know if they still did, but we used to archive all of the exhibits. Like, we would take pictures, take the big pieces out, kind of put them all together, and it might still be somewhere in there. But I remember painting that title on that board, kind of in a simplistic, rustic way, it might have been.
Oh, if that's still in there, there's a 25-year anniversary thing. You gotta pull that out. That would be so
I'll
awesome.
have to do some checking.
Yeah, that would be really
Yeah.
cool.
So was it the three of you discussing this, or primarily you two, or do you
I
recall
remember
that,
us talking about it. I don't remember if Jennifer was.
how they landed on that?
Yeah. Oh, God.
Well, that was the title of that first exhibit. I mean, that's what, we used to do, Special Collections used to do exhibits in a couple of different cases around the library, and whatever case that was in, I'm trying to, it might have been down in the main, I guess what would be north entrance. There were some cases, and that might have been where it was. But yeah, so we put together the exhibit, talked about the project, put that board up there.
Did we do that? Is that the one where we did, because it was the first exhibit I'd ever built that used the foam core and built out the clouds? Do you
Sure it
remember
was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've done probably a million since then, but that was the first one I ever built.
Yeah.
It's a great title. Dust Drought, Dreams Don't Dry.
I thought it was nice.
Yeah.
Alliterative.
And I think they picked that up when they did, in 2015, they did a traveling exhibit. The American Library Association did, and picked up on that title too.
This is kind of a funny story that when that traveling exhibit became available and you could apply to bring it to your school, I applied and I got turned down because they said I wasn't qualified to host it. I'm like, I did that. That's me. And they said no. I think it's funny.
That exhibit, here's something
Even
interesting.
funnier.
Yeah, that exhibit, in my town, or the town where I teach, Fort Smith, there's Fort Smith Museum of History, and they I don't know exactly the process, but they went through the process and requested that traveling exhibit to come to that museum. And then, so okay, they were approved, and now that exhibit's going to open up at the Fort Smith Museum of History. They called the history department at my school and asked if there was anyone that I knew of or that could talk about that exhibit.
I know it.
And I was like, yeah, I think I could probably find a few people.
So on one hand, it's really funny to me that, people, I can't host it, or do you know anybody who might be able to talk about this thing that we did? But on the other side of that coin, it makes me really kind of proud that we kept the focus on those women and it's not about us.
Yeah.
So I feel good about that part.
So I wondered, why is the museum in Fort Smith interested in the Dust Bowl exhibit thing, right? And I said, and so I know the director there really well. I said, Caroline, because she goes, well, can you come talk about it then? Can you come talk, be the kind of the featured speaker of the exhibit? And I was like, yeah, I'm really excited to do that. And I said, but I'm gonna talk about how people don't know where the Dust Bowl was. And it wasn't in Fort Smith at all. It wasn't, it got nowhere close to here. Stein, Beck, and the Grapes of Wrath, that was not about the Dust Bowl. That was about something completely different, and she was like, oh. You could tell, she didn't, wasn't aware of any of that. And I said, do you want me to say that out loud? Because if you leave me to my own devices, I will. I'm going to bust that bubble, She was like, no, you need to say it. You need to do it. You need to tell the truth of what was really going on. I said, okay, well then I'll include that in my talk, But it was just kind of going back to that earlier talk about where people don't really know where the Dust Bowl was, And so many people think that the Jodes and Grapes of Wrath are all about the Dust Bowl, and it's not. It was about, it was drought there, but it was about mechanization of the farm. Farmers, landowners using mechanized machinery and tractors didn't need tenant farmers on their land anymore, so they kicked them out, and the Jodes are out. So, so that's, but anyway.
That collection can be used to teach geography, history, social.
It is so
It's
diverse.
so good.
Yes.
Humanity in general, I guess, and literature.
In fact, we have actually been guest speakers at schools in Kansas that have used the Dust Bowl as a freshman seminar. And then they have brought us in to talk about the work that we did. As sort of like a general, welcome to college deep thinking humanities kind of experience.
There's a lot to look around in there.
Yeah, so your careers just took off by stepping in the library. We'll give the library
That's
a little
right.
credit.
Libraries change the world and
No,
the people who go in them.
I'll tell you what. Well, that's right. That's right.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that I was in trouble when I walked into special collections because I had lost, I timed out of my funding at the history department and I didn't know what I was going to do next, and I had to find something to do to put some ramen noodles on my plate and pay the bills before I got my dissertation done. And I walked in there and got down on my hands and knees and begged Heather Lloyd for a job, and she said yes. She took a chance on me and gave me that job, and I milked it for everything that it was worth, all the way up through Jennifer's time as head, and then I eventually became, I don't think I was ever 40 hours a week, but pretty close to that, and so I'm eternally grateful to Heather Lloyd, to Jennifer Paustenbaugh, and even to Dave Peters, even to you, Dave, and your Little Debbie drawer.
I remember Little Debbie drawer.
So Dave used to work down in the map room, and he wanted to work up in special collections, and Jennifer said, we're gonna move Dave Peters up here to special collections, and I said, and his Little Debbie drawer, and she was like, no, he's not bringing that Little Debbie, because food is a death knell to our guys. And she goes, he's not bringing that Little Debbie drawer up here. Well, 2 weeks later, there's the Little Debbie drawer in Dave's office. Yeah, but the story is the SKUA department supported us every step of the way, and it wouldn't have happened without all those people.
It was, for me, it seems so goofy, but such a magical time, because I thought I had direction, but I didn't know what I was actually doing. And I thought I was making the most of opportunities, but I didn't actually know what they were. And I still was in a place that let me grow into skills that I didn't know I was going to need and use. And really, I look back and that was just like the most fun and the hardest work and the deepest thinking I've ever done. And so I think that's why I keep coming back to it. Because there's always something else to mine and discover. We talked about this the other day, that I have listened to those interviews probably, if at once I've listened to them 100 times, and I hear something different every single time, even though I was there. And I'm right back there as soon as I hear the audio start, I'm right back there, 20-something-year-old, listening to these women's stories. And it just is magical. And I want to keep working with that collection and keep working with this project until it doesn't feel magical anymore. So
I don't know why it feels magical. I mean, I really don't. But one, I think is because we were in the glow of youth. You know what I mean?
Well, that's true, though.
Yeah.
Somebody would say, like, here's a car, here's some equipment, go do
Here's
this.
some
We're
money.
like, okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's true.
We were just like, whatever.
I can get paid to do history stuff. That's cool.
Yeah,
All right.
we were getting paid to do this. We would have paid to do it. But but I want to talk about this, and I think it might have been in Guyman. I think it was Guyman, where we talked with that guy. It was a guy interview, and it was Stanfield, and it was in a downtown
Yep, I remember
business space that was horrible because, again, it was
big old fan.
this big
going.
giant heater
Yeah.
in the corner, and it would kick on. He'd be like, and so then I remember that the cow did, like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But he took us to the back, and he was building that machine.
Uh-huh.
I go, what's this? And he was like, well, this is a machine I'm building to replicate the dust of the Dust Bowl.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? And he said, it was this dust was there's no other dust like it. And he said, it was like baby powder, if you
Uh-huh.
like talcum powder.
Yeah.
It was just finer than that.
Mhm.
It was I've never seen dust so fine. The particulates were like, they go through everything. They go through sheets, they go through everything. And he said, I'm trying to recreate that. And he had a machine that he built that
I do remember that.
ground up dirt, and he would pour dirt in there over and over again to try to find dirt that was as fine texture as the Dust Bowl dirt. And so this guy is like 80 years old, and his driving goal in life is to recreate the dirt of the Dust Bowl. And it's like, oh my gosh, these people, I mean, this is PTSD. They're carrying this stuff down, deep down in there. If you're 80 years old and your driving goal in life is to recreate the dirt that you saw as a kid, that's
something.
you know? And I remember, do you remember seeing that?
I do. Now that you tell that story, I remember
He
that.
took us in the back and he was like, you know, it looked like a popcorn popper kind of thing.
It did.
And he was like, this is going to recreate the Dust Bowl dirt. It's like, oh my gosh, this is crazy.
Well,
I mean, I don't mean it all to be
but
negative,
that's
but
something.
it was like, yeah, it's very intense. Yeah.
More amazing than crazy.
Right.
Yes, yeah, crazy.
Well, and then didn't Egan, when he was working on that book, didn't he like try to do a simulation of a dust storm?
Well, yeah, he got that house. He got he tried.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then now that museum, XIT museum in Texas, they have that dust storm thing.
There are two things that are kind of like that, right? There's the one in the Woody Guthrie Center.
The VR
virtual,
thing, yeah, where you
seen
sit on
that?
the porch. When you go in the Woody Guthrie Center in Tulsa, when you first come into the museum space, there's like a front porch of a house, and you sit in a chair and you put on virtual reality goggles, and you can look around, and it goes through a dust storm.
Like
The tumbleweed
it
blows
gets
by,
darker,
it's real
and there's a
dark.
car that kind of pulls up. You barely see its headlights, and rabbits are running by. You lift your feet because the rabbits are going.
Right.
It's really neat. And
But then there's one
in Texas.
in Delhart at the XIT Museum.
Yeah, and they have a Dust Bowl house, and you can kind of go in there, and the door's shut, and you look out the
You
window.
hear people talking, and they said, "There's a duster coming."
And the house kind of moves, and
It feels different though. The XIT one kind of is reminiscent of like, Wizard of Oz Cyclone kind of feel to it. And the Woody Guthrie Center one it felt like virtual reality, but it seemed more consistent with the stories we heard. Yeah.
I wouldn't trust that. Texas.
But even at the museum in Cimarron County, at the Cimarron Heritage Center, they have a house now. They have the museum space, which was the Bruce Goff house, and then the extra like metal building where we did interviews. And then behind it, they have a dugout, and they have now a Dust Bowl house that they have set up to have the newspaper wallpaper on the walls and a cream separator and all the things that we'd heard about in those interviews from Cimarron County. They have that now as a space you can walk through.
Yeah.
So.
Can you imagine yourselves living through that time period, knowing what you know from this?
Not beating snakes with golf clubs. But parts of it I could imagine, at least empathetically imagine, because I've heard enough of those stories.
Yeah.
Well, we've been through the one dust storm.
yeah, we were in that one.
You see a picture of that of Steve.
Yeah.
I took the picture, so I don't have to be in it.
I don't know. It's a weird question. I don't know if I ever do. I always think like I wouldn't have wanted to have been there.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, these people put a nice spin on it, but most of them were trapped in a hellish situation. Where are we going to get food from? How are we going to survive next week?
And the work that we're doing now with the Home Demonstration Club reports, the women that are quoted there talk about how, I am desperate to get to club because I want connection with other live people.
Yeah.
Right.
These home demonstration clubs help us understand the reality of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And these women are carrying their kids to home demonstration club meetings in wagons and
Going 2 and 3 miles.
Yeah, walking with their kids just so they can talk to a human being.
Mm-hmm.
That's not their kid.
Other than their husbands.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's part of that story too.
Right.
You get a little bit of that feminine mystique, excuse me. It's down there. Like these women are home all day and they don't have any contact or connections or anything else, and home demonstration clubs help create that for them, help give them that human contact. And that's a side of the story that we didn't really get from our
Well, you
interviews.
wouldn't have thought, you can't cover everything.
Right.
But you mean, it would have been.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that, who knows when you're doing it, right? But the story I'll tell today about this longitudinal element, it took me some detective work to figure out, because we didn't think to ask women's maiden names. When we asked them to introduce themselves, they gave us married names, and we'd write down and go on about our life.
Well, some did, some gave us, I mean, some
We
gave
didn't
us,
ask them.
yeah, it
Yeah.
wasn't like we should have.
Right. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
but we didn't do it with any kind of regularity.
Mm-mm. We'd ask about when they got married, so we know that part, but you'd have to go back and now dig a lot of it out and think about.
With the internet, you can get some obits,
Yeah.
but they don't always show, they don't always
Yeah.
have an obit, so.
That's something too, I want to say, that on our trips back in 11 and in 19, it has been sort of an unspoken part of the itinerary that we're going to go to cemeteries and pay respects to people that we talked to that had passed away since we were there the time before,
Which is everybody.
which is all of them now. But we didn't talk about that we were going to do that, but we just kind of started doing it.
Yeah, right. You go driving by the Willow Bar Cemetery or the Union Cemetery,
Or
you know that
Nexoma.
they're buried in
Witness.
there. So you stop and say hi to those ladies.
It does feel like that though, and it's kind of
Yeah.
It's
Part of that.
that connection.
yeah. I feel like I would be doing something wrong if I didn't. If I went there, if I'm right by the Willow Bar Cemetery and I don't go in there, that seems like the wrong thing to do.
Right.
I never would have thought about that. I mean, because I'm a historian, I've done projects on lots of different things before and have very easily put it on the shelf and walked away when I was done. Put my dissertation on the shelf and walked away when I was done. But this project keeps coming back. Just really feel connected to it in a way that there's still something else I'm supposed to say about it. Right? So just keep coming back to it.
Yeah.
Writing about it, talking about it.
I look forward to what that is.
Yeah.
You too.
Yeah.
I think I have covered my questions. Look at your list and see if we
miss anything?
If we miss anything. Mine's
I
covered.
think all of the big stuff. We'll do that later.
We had such a good time at that first Santa Fe Trail Days we went to in the spring of '01.
Uh-huh.
It's a community event, and the whole town was out for it. And they have parades, they have dog pet shows,
Oh, yeah.
they have post-hole digging contests,
Watermelon feed.
and then they have an evening of entertainment at the high school auditorium
Uh-huh.
where they have talent shows, and everybody's like converges on the town from all over. And we were there, and they have the high school cheerleaders were going to, pom-pom girls were going to go down the
In the
street
parade.
in the parade. And then one girl, they were practicing their,
Tumbling.
tumbling stuff. And one girl
Acrobatic things.
broke her leg or
Yeah, she got hurt.
she broke her ankle or sprained something. She couldn't be in, and she was crying,
Yeah.
cheerleader style, because she couldn't be in the parade. So in perfect Boise City,
Mhm.
small town fashion, the EMS crew, which is also in the parade,
Exactly. Of course.
just
Why not?
just sticks her out the back of the EMS ambulance on a gurney
They
or something.
reposition the cheerleaders right behind the ambulance.
And then
So she's out the back of the ambulance.
and then she's like waving from the EMS
Yeah.
band. She's
Yeah.
still in the parade.
Still in the parade.
And
We were in the parade. It was
yeah,
fun.
we were the Dust Bowl interpretive reenactment troupe. Dirt. And so we went out and we got a bucket, and we went out and dug up dirt.
Cimarron County dirt.
And
And had a broom.
yeah, and then you had the broom and I had the dirt, and we were with the kids, the grandkids of women we interviewed.
Uh-huh.
And they were gonna be,
Passing out candy, holding the sign.
did we get candy? We got candy.
There was a bucket of candy
Yeah,
too.
but we got the candy. We got so
Yeah.
we made a sign that said Dust Bowl interpretive reenactment troupe. Dirt.
OU chapter.
It was put OU chapter in case people got mad. And then so I was the dust storm, and I was carrying a bucket of dirt, and I would go up to people And I'd say,
On the side of the parade route.
yeah, and I'd say, like, I'm a dust storm. I'm coming to your house. And I'd throw dirt on their feet. And then Shelly would come over the broom and go, get out of here, you old dust storm. Sweep the dust on their feet. Then the kids would have my throw candy at them. And we did that all up and down the street. I'm a dust storm. People were like, you're nuts. And I was like, I'm a dust storm. And then Shelly's like, get out of here, you old dust storm.
It was so fun.
And then the little kid was like, the candy passer was like, I want to be the dust storm. And he was like, okay, you be the dust storm.
He was doing it.
So he was like, get it, I'm a dust storm. And he was throwing dirt at people's feet. And he loved it. I was pitching up candy.
Oh my gosh, that was so funny.
Yeah.
Did you have pictures of this?
There's a still a before
Yeah,
in the slides today.
yeah, there's one picture right before we got
I'm
started.
thinking you need a t-shirt now for that.
Dirt.
Dust Bowl interpretive reenactment troupe.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and then on the back, do dust drought.
Oh, put a QR code.
No, one back, but OU chapter. Because we were like, this might not go over too well.
We were taking a big risk there.
Yeah, and then
Like,
you're like,
okay.
So have they invited you back?
Not for the parade.
well, we were throwing dirt on people's feet. Who's gonna? I mean, some people laugh at people like, get out of here.
Right. It was
But
just silly.
by the time they knew what was going on, we were gone.
Blowing like a dust storm.
Yeah, but you'll see that picture today.
Took part in the, got caught up in the moment.
Oh,
didn't you?
we did. It was fun.
Well, and they also had history tours out, and
That was really cool.
we got on. We were on those history tours, and we have a picture of Shelly next to what they call Autograph Rock, and so that's part of the Santa Fe Trail cutoff. It goes through Cimarron County, and there is Spanish graffiti from the 18th century.
Coronado signature. Right. That whole.
Yeah, there's like really, really old Spanish scratchings on that rock, and all the way up to Santa Fe Trail, U.S. traders going through. But it's kind of neat, and so we
Well,
have a
and
picture
they-
of Shelly out there.
Yeah, it was a big deal for the people at the museum. Phyllis Randolph and Jody at the museum said, you guys have to come for the tour at Santa Fe Trail Days. And so we did. And they didn't tell us to be in the parade. We did that by ourselves. But after that, we were on that bus and went out to Kenton and went out, did the whole tour.
Yeah.
Building that community with respect.
Yeah.
Well, when we went back in 2019, they were like, let's go on a tour. And so we got in a truck this time, and
Jody driving us around.
and they took us to a lot of places that are off limits. Like you
You're
can't
not
go on
supposed to
there.
be there.
Yeah, and so a lot of cool stuff we saw, and we'll talk about it today.
Yeah.
So
So we've been up 25 years. What do you expect the next, what would you like 25 years from now, what would you be telling, I don't know, people might not know anything about this, or how would you describe the project, I guess, to them to get them interested enough to visit the collection?
that's a good
Does that
question.
sound-
That is a good question.
Well, I think that you could say there probably isn't a time in U.S. history like it, where you had the combination of the Depression plus the environmental disaster that was going on. I'm not sure that it's pretty unique, and these recordings are some of the best primary sources out there on, and you say the word unique, that means there's nothing else like it. And I use that word to describe that. So you have the best primary sources on a unique event. That's pretty powerful, and it's not just academic. It's got an incredible, massive human component to it as well. So I think for those two reasons, people will still continue to be interested in it.
I think even right now, just sort of like whenever I have people that I know either through work or through just like connections, they're interested in climate change, I already can say, oh, have you heard these? And then they just got to get into that first one. And then people come back and say, I listened to like 5 of those. Those were so interesting of what's there. Sometimes I got to sell people on it. It's like, well, you hear me sounding all goofy. And they're like, oh, I want to hear you sounding all goofy. And that'll be enough. But 25 years from now, I hope that we have a book out too, and then they can say, I read that book that you did, and I want to go back and see where that came from. So,
I know when COVID was going on, a couple of people used them comparing the masks with the face coverings that were mentioned during the storms.
Well, you know, we
Comparison.
work in public history. There are universal intangibles in all sorts of ways. So there are things captured in the audio files and in those transcripts that we don't even know is going to happen in 25 years. But then because we know that collection, we say, it's in that collection. Go, let's see it there. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
Anything else on your list?
I don't think so. I think we covered everything on that I had written down that we talked about before.
Oh, my own questions I always end up asking is, how do you want history to remember each of you? How do you want to be remembered?
Oh gosh. That Shelly Lemons was willing to try and say, why not? Let's see what happens. Still your words, that I'm genuinely curious, and that I use that for good in the world, to ask questions about things, and maybe the answers I get can snowball to do something else. I feel like with this project I've left a mark and made a difference.
I think that's all I would say too, is I want to preserve history. I want to help other people understand the past and the way it relates to us in the future. So if I accomplish that in any way, I'm good. I don't have any desire to be remembered, really, myself.
Okay. Yeah, it really, this project, it wasn't ever really about us.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the beauty of it, in so many ways, that it really was about that story, and that these two yahoos were interested in that story.
I wonder what if it was something else? Would it have been as successful or as etched as deeply in, what if it had been like women politics or women, was it the topic that was so memorable, or was it, you know what I'm saying? If we had sat there at that desk that day and said, oh, let's do women political leaders or something, I'd be like, boring. I would have done it, but I would have been like, on the shelf, I'm done.
Well, or even if like another project that the center did, if we had been the people who had done the circus project, would it resonate the same way? I think there was something about that space that we were in, and about us doing it, and about sort of like a couple of vortexes, like things happening at the intersections of things. That population, we were well suited for that population at that time in that place.
Shelly used the word vortex just now. And, okay, this is something true. So in Beaver County, there's the Beaver, what's it called? Beaver Sand Dunes.
That's where you took that picture you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, right. There's I don't know if it's a state park, but it's.
I think it is.
Yeah, and there's a legend of a vortex out in Beaver County in that state park. And a guy was walking and just disappeared. And his family heard his voice calling for them, but they never found him again. He just disappeared out there. And since that time, the vortex, people go out there kind of looking for it. And a guy talked about how he went out there one time looking for it, and he just kind of looked around, and there were the guys all dressed in black that surrounded him and carried him, forced him into a car, and drove him miles out in the country and dropped him off out there. And they said, "Don't come back." And he had gotten too close to something in that area. Well, okay, so I go, Jennifer, we have to go out and find the Beaver vortex. So she's all about it. So she's out there in her orange suit, stomping around, yeah, high heels, But she's, so we're out there. We did not see the vortex. But later, now I'm working for the Oklahoma History Center, and I'm in Enid, Oklahoma, talking with these people working in Oklahoma history or whatever, and I talk about the Beaver County vortex, and these two girls started laughing. They're not girls, they're women, they're my age, but they start talking and laughing. I go, what? What do you, what? And they go, like, we made that up. We made that story up. And they were, I think they were working for the Enid Museum out there, but they said one night they were just goofing, and they said, what, could we make up a story that would get traction and become thought of as real? And I think they've been drinking. But they did. They started putting out stories out on the Beaver County vortex, and people picked it up and started moving it forward. And I said, oh my gosh, you guys, I was out there tromping around looking for it. You know, they're laughing, but they made it up. So there is no Beaver County vortex. It was all made up by these ladies.
Precursor to fake news.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'll still read about it every once in a while. And I go, okay, whatever.
Yeah, you know.
Now we're just drifting off. Tanya,
Now you enjoyed this. Well, my last question lately has been, what brings you joy today?
Oh my
Today?
gosh, yeah.
Today.
Lots of things.
Revisiting all these stories.
Yeah.
You, Tanya, have
Yeah,
joy.
that's actually true.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have enough of that in this world at the moment, do we? So I've been asking that question.
Yeah.
Well,
Between that and hope, go back and forth. What brings you
Right,
hope?
yeah.
What brings you joy?
well, it's you. You have brought us joy today.
Mm-hmm.
You're the bringer of joy. Tanya, the bringer of joy. We'll call you that.
All right, I will not. Go ahead.
Shelley's the chair of the session. She will introduce you as Tanya, the bringer of joy.
The bringer of joy. And you can look over your shoulder. Joy, are you here?
I'm going to bring you.
On that note, we'll bring you back around and say thank you for sharing with us today.
Oh
It's
my
been-
gosh.
It's been great.
This has been so much fun. Thank you
Yeah,
for
thank you.
asking us to do it. So.
I hope that this helps people put those interviews in context.
Mm-hmm.
I do too, and if we need a round two down the road, if we can do it.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
Now let's stop this and talk about real important stuff.